Chapter 1389. Naruto and Sasuke were stunned as they looked at Otsutsuki Kagaya, who was gradually buried by the rocks and slowly rising into the sky. The marks of yang and yin on their palms were still there, but the enemy had been sealed. "We haven't done anything yet, and it's over?" When Otsutsuki Kagaya, the mother of the Sage of the Six Paths, was resurrected, the two of them firmly believed that they, who were chosen by the Sage of the Six Paths, were the key to saving the world. They have been working hard for this. Even when facing Otsutsuki Kagaya, the ancestor of the chakra, they didn't have the slightest fear or retreat. But they never thought that as soon as Hyojin made his move, the outcome was instantly decided. Otsutsuki Kagaya, the mythical character with the titles of the ancestor of the chakra, the goddess of Moro, and so on, was sealed almost without any resistance. Such a result was undoubtedly too surprising. Not to mention Naruto and Sasuke, even Kakashi, Naidame, and fourth generations, who were more optimistic about the battle, were shocked when they saw this scene. Kakashi couldn't help but say to himself, "Has Kuroto become so powerful? Even the ancestor of the chakra can be defeated so easily?" Naidame was also surprised at the moment. He had seen the chaotic warring states period, experienced the war between the shinobi villages, and witnessed the battle between the shinobi village and Madara Uchiha, the two peerless strong people known as the shinobi god. He thought that his experience was rich enough, and that nothing could shock him anymore, but looking at Kuroto in the distance, who looked like a kami, no, not like, but a real kami, Kuroto realized how lacking his knowledge was. The first Hokage that he looked up to, and the enemy that he was afraid of, Madara, these ninjas that he thought were the limits of a ninja could reach, the strongest ninjas that could be crowned as gods, but in front of Kuroto, they were all reduced to mortals. Naidame Naruto, fourth generations, who already knew Hyojin's identity as Yama, was a little calmer, and smiled gently. "In this era, fortunately, there is Naidame. This is the luck of Mai, and also the luck of the world." Obsidian slowly withdrew his gaze. It seemed that he was not surprised by Hyojin's victory, and his face had an as expected expression. In the field. At this time, Suijin was looking at the huge sphere in the sky that he created with the Keiji Tensei, while slowly pulling out the bone blade inserted in his body. The confrontation just now was actually not as simple as it seemed on the surface. At the moment of the fight, Otsutsuki Kagaya actually secretly used a kind of pupil technique that can freeze Suijin's body for a moment, causing Suijin's figure to freeze for a moment. However, Hyojin, who was in the Tenseigan chakra mode, has a certain ability to resist seals and imprisonment, plus he also has an Eye of the Moon, which interferes with Otsutsuki Kagaya's pupil technique, so at the moment of being hit, he immediately broke free from Otsutsuki Kagaya's freeze. However, the momentary stagnation of his body still affected Hyojin's dodging, so he was hit by several of Otsutsuki Kagaya's bone blades. Why didn't she use that instantaneous pupil technique earlier? As long as she took Naruto by surprise, Sasuke wouldn't even need a second, right? Thinking back to the scene just now, Hyojin was a little puzzled. He even wondered if Otsutsuki Kagaya mastered too many ninjutsu, so much so that he didn't know what kind of pupil technique to use. Ninjutsu would be fine. Pulling out the bone blade inserted in his body, Hyojin's expression slightly froze. The area where he was stabbed by the bone blade showed signs of withering and rotting. Although it wasn't serious, it was enough to shock him. After all, he had mastered the common killer Grey Bones technique, and his body had enough resistance to the common killer Grey Bones. But even so, the area of his body that was hit by the bone blade still showed signs of withering and decay. It can be seen how overbearing the mutual killer Ash Bones technique was. If it was someone else, even if it was a six-path level strong person, if they were hit by this technique, they would probably lose a layer of skin even if they didn't die. After using the Tenseigan chakra to remove the withering and decay in the wound, Hyojin once again looked at the Kurigaku Tensei in the air where Otsutsuki Kagaya was sealed. After the previous failure, this time, his execution of the earthly explosion heavenly star was in accordance with the rules, and there were no mistakes. The reason why he brazenly activated the seal and no longer tried to negotiate with Otsutsuki Kagaya was because he found that Otsutsuki Kagaya was a complete godhead. She did not have the thinking of ordinary humans, nor did she have the empathy of ordinary humans. She was a pure Kekkei Genkai. In the face of such a person, or rather a god, it was very difficult to communicate, because Hyojin even had some doubts about whether Otsutsuki Kagaya regarded him as one of her kind. Therefore, Hyojin decisively chose to seal her. Hyojin wanted to let Otsutsuki Kagaya know that he had the ability to seal her at any time, and that fear was often the beginning of respect. In addition, Hyojin had other considerations when he sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya. He had just achieved Kekkei Genkai, and there were many things worth exploring and studying in the realm of Kekkei Genkai alone. In addition, he had just witnessed Otsutsuki Kagaya using the method of chakra to use Uchiha Madara to resurrect, as well as Otsutsuki Kagaya's heavenly defense, 80 God Void strikes, and other jutsu. It could be said that there were too many things for him to study and analyze now, so he was not in a hurry to learn the Otsutsuki clan's technology and secrets that Otsutsuki Kagaya had hidden. After all, rice had to be eaten one bite at a time, and the road had to be taken one step at a time. Anyway, his Eye of the Moon had already marked this primordial sphere. When he fully mastered the various abilities of Kekkei Tensei, Chakra Attack, 80 God Void Strikes, and other techniques, it would not be too late to talk to Otsutsuki Kagaya. Roar! Just as Hyojin was thinking about it, Ten Tails, who had separated from Otsutsuki Kagaya, roared. Feeling the terrifying chakra on Ten Tails, Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi, second generation and fourth generation, who were a little further away, became nervous again. Hyojin looked over and said, "Shut up!" With Hyojin's soft shout, Ten Tails, who was in a rage, immediately quieted down under the gaze of Hyojin's scarlet Eye of the Moon, and obediently squatted aside. "I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1390. Jubi, who was still arrogant, roaring at the sky and bursting out waves of terrifying chakra, was stared at by Hyojin and suddenly became docile like a pet dog, squatting aside obediently. The scarlet Eye of the Moon on its head peeked at Hyojin from time to time, with the word fear written all over its face. This, Naruto and Sasuke, who were ready for the battle, were speechless. Kakashi, second generation, and fourth generation shook their heads and laughed. Now they finally understood where the legend of Jubi was the spiritual beast of the immortals came from. Obviously, when the strength reached a certain level, Jubi, who symbolized the disaster itself, was just a pet with a bigger head. After being disturbed by Jubi, Hyojin collected his scattered thoughts and pondered how to deal with this monster. There is no doubt that Jubi was a weapon developed by the Otsutsuki family. In the form of the sacred tree, its role was to absorb the energy of the planet and condense chakra fruit, and in the form of Jubi, it was a chakra battery, a weapon of war. It can be said that Jubi itself was the crystallization of the technology of the Otsutsuki family, at least 1,000 years ago. Since it has been merged, there is no need to divide it. After muttering to himself, Suijin walked to Jubi's side, stretched out his hand and pressed on Jubi's body, and then suddenly pulled Madara out of the body. Thump! The unconscious Madara Uchiha fell to the ground. Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi, second generation, and fourth generation came over at this time and looked at the unconscious Madara Uchiha on the ground. Everyone showed a surprised look. At this time, Madara Uchiha no longer had the momentum of Jubi's Jinchuriki, and his breath was weak like an old man who was dying. Second generation Naruto said, "He looks like he's about to die." Hyojin nodded and said, "Yes, it's hopeless." Uchiha Madara's situation is even more special than that of Obsidian. Obsidian was stripped of the Jubi, and he was invaded by Otsutsuki Kagaya chakra as a Kekii net. In other words, Uchiha Madara has been assimilated by Otsutsuki Kagaya, and the fundamental chakra has been contaminated. In this case, even Hyojin is not sure to save him. Of course, there was no need for Hyojin to waste time and effort to save him. Looking at the withered face of Madara Uchiha, Naruto sighed and said, "It's ironic that a proud person like him should end up like this." Madara Uchiha fooled everyone by pretending to be dead, remotely controlled the Akatsuki organization to set off the shinobi war, but in the end, he turned out to be someone else's chess piece, and he ended up like this, which is really ironic. Kakashi stared at Jubi and asked Hyojin, "Kuroto, what are you going to do with it?" Naruto quickly looked at Hyojin and asked, "Sensei, the 9th Lama was swallowed by this monster, you must help me save him." "Okay." Hyojin nodded gently. It is not difficult for Hyojin to separate a part of the 9 Tails chakra from Jubi. Kakashi whispered, "If you bring Jubi back to the shinobi world, other shinobi villages may ask us for the tailed beasts." Hyojin smiled and said, "I know what to do." In fact, with the current strength of Hyojin, he doesn't need to care about what other shinobi villages think. As long as he wants, he can even imitate Otsutsuki Kagaya to launch the infinite Tsukuyomi and gather all the chakra in the shinobi world into himself. At this time, Kakashi wanted to say something but stopped. He opened his mouth several times, but swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Yondaime Naruto saw this and asked in place of Kakashi, "Yondaime, what are you going to do with obsidian?" Kakashi immediately looked at Hyojin nervously. Hyojin did not answer immediately, but slowly walked towards obsidian lying in the distance, and everyone followed one by one. Seeing that Suijin had arrived in front of him, the Obito laughed in a self-deprecating manner. "Everything I've worked so hard for turned out to be nothing but a lie. Kuroto, you're right, I'm really a fool." When he understood the true purpose of the infinite Tsukuyomi, obsidian broke down. All his efforts were just lies constructed by others in the end. This not only made everything he had done in the past 10 years seem ridiculous, but it also made his already rough life full of sorrow. Kakashi had a complicated expression. Obsidian looked at Kakashi and Yondaime Naruto. "Kakashi, sensei, I'm sorry." Hearing Obsidian's sorry, Kakashi suddenly trembled. All kinds of memories of the past came to his mind, and he couldn't help but ask Hyojin, "Hyojin, can you save him?" Hyojin said calmly, "You have to ask him if he still wants to live or not." Obsidian, whose faith had collapsed, shook his head and refused Kakashi's kindness. "Kakashi, let me use death to atone for my past sins." Kakashi was speechless. Obsidian was one of the masterminds of the 4th Shinobi World War. Even if the victims of the other shinobi villages were not counted, the Mai ninjas alone had died in the hands of Obsidian. Therefore, even if he ignored the attitude of the other shinobi villages, Kakashi, who wanted to save Obsidian, had no way to explain it to the Mai. And just as Kakashi was silent, Yondaime Naruto smiled. "Obsidian, there are many ways to atone for your sins, and death is the easiest one." Obsidian's expression froze. Yondaime then asked, "Are you going to escape again?" Kakashi quickly said, "You have committed a lot of crimes, and only dying once is too easy for you." Obsidian was speechless. Kakashi said to Kuroto, "Kuroto, save him, I will bear all the responsibility." "Can you bear this kind of thing?" With a smile, Hyojin patted Kakashi on the shoulder. "Let me take the blame, anyway, no one dares to trouble me now." After saying that, Hyojin asked Kakashi to put Obsidian's broken body in 2, and then sent a universal nature to rebuild the body. For the current Hyojin, it was not difficult to resurrect a person, let alone save a person. And the living Obsidian had other uses for Hyojin. After all, Obsidian was a stubborn guy. Once he was controlled, he could be regarded as a useful tool. As for atonement, working for Naruto was also a part of atonement. At this time, Obsidian stretched out his arm to Hyojin and made the seal of reconciliation gesture. I lost. The second update is here, the end of the month. Students who still have monthly votes, please support. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1391. Hyojin smiled and reached out his hand to complete the seal of reconciliation with Obsidian. Seeing this scene, Kakashi breathed a long sigh of relief. Although his power as Deputy Naruto is not small, but there are Naruto and the Council of Elders in the village, and there are other shinobi villages outside the village. As a Deputy Naruto, he is obviously not qualified to vouch for Obsidian, a felon who provoked a war. However, Hyojin is different. Mai's fifth-generation Naruto, the leader of Amatsukami, and the hero who ended the Fourth Shinobi War with his own strength, no matter which identity, they all have enough weight, not to mention that all of these identities belong to him. It can be said that the current Hyojin is the most powerful and famous person in the shinobi world. Anyone with a little sense will not choose to openly oppose Hyojin, so if there is Hyojin's endorsement, Obsidian's life can be considered to be saved. At this time, 4 generations said to Obsidian, "It's great to see that you have turned over a new leaf." Obsidian instinctively avoided the gaze of 4 generations, and his face was burning. As the main culprit of the Nine-Tailed Rebellion, the 4th-generation hermit in front of him could be said to be the person he had hurt the most. Therefore, he felt extremely guilty when the 4th-generation hermit forgave him. Seeing that his father has forgiven Obsidian, Naruto laughed and said, "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, please take care of me in the future." Sasuke crossed his arms over his chest and said coolly, "I'm Uchiha Sasuke." After learning that Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian were all deceived by Black Jew, the 2nd-generation Naruto also put down his prejudice against Uchiha and said to Obsidian, "Young Uchiha, you're on your own." Bang bang. However, before 2nd-generation Naruto could finish speaking, he suddenly disappeared in a puff of white smoke, and disappeared with him was the 4 generations Naruto. What's going on? Seeing his father suddenly disappear, Naruto was shocked. Sasuke and Obsidian were also surprised. Hyojin and Kakashi looked at each other and said at the same time, "Orochimaru?" The 1st generation, 2nd generation, and 4 generations were all Orochimaru's impure earth reincarnation and were controlled by Orochimaru's impure earth body. Therefore, just now, 2nd generation and 4 generations were teleported away by Orochimaru. It is impossible for the shinobi world to know about the battle in the prime orb space, so Orochimaru probably doesn't know that the battle here has ended smoothly. So, it is very strange for him to send the impure earth form away at this time. With Hyojin's understanding of Orochimaru, at this critical moment, Orochimaru would not make such a low-level mistake. The only explanation is that Orochimaru is in trouble, a trouble that is enough to threaten his life, so he had no choice but to teleport 2nd generation and 4 generations who may be fighting with Otsutsuki Kagaya. But the question is, who would want to go against Orochimaru at this time? What's more, Orochimaru isn't a pushover. He has pharmacist Do, Kimimaro, Yugo, Yamato, and the others around him. They are all Kage and Jonin-level ninjas, so it won't be easy to deal with him. Kakashi seemed to think of something and said, "I heard from Tsunade-sama that Orochimaru seems to have his eyes on Nagato." "I knew it." After shaking his head and chuckling for a while, Hyojin said, "Forget about him, let's deal with Ten Tails first." Kakashi quickly asked, "How do you want to deal with Ten Tails?" Hyojin looked at Obsidian. Obsidian was startled for a moment and reacted, "You are not thinking of transferring Ten Tails to my godly power space, are you? Don't you think that your godly power space is the most suitable place to store Ten Tails?" After a pause, Hyojin looked around and said, "This space is Otsutsuki Kagaya's territory, it is too dangerous to leave Ten Tails here, and letting Tentails stay in the shinobi world will easily cause unnecessary trouble, so moving to the godly power space is the best choice at present. Obsidian said, I have no objection. I have no objection either. Kakashi nodded. With the two examples of Uchiha Obsidian and Uchiha Madara, it is no secret in the shinobi world that becoming a Jubi's Jinchuriki will allow one to step into the six-path realm and become a sage. Therefore, Tentails is too sensitive at the moment. If he rashly brings Tentails back to the shinobi world, not only will it easily arouse the conflict between the 5 great shinobi villages, but it will also easily attract the attention of those with bad intentions. At this time, Hyojin waved his hand and used Rain Pull to summon Uchiha Madara in the distance and handed him to Kakashi, and said, Kakashi, you first bring Uchiha Madara back to the village, and then announce that I have successfully sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya. As for Tentails and Obsidian, don't mention them for the time being. Kakashi said, I understand. Hyojin glanced at the Rinnegan in Uchiha Madara's eye sockets and said, Protect this pair of Rinnegan, and when I come back, I will consider what to do with it. The value of the Rinnegan is naturally clear to Kakashi, so he solemnly promised, Don't worry, I will definitely keep this pair of Rinnegan safe. Hyojin activated Yomi Bairasuk and opened the space gate to the shinobi world, then said, Naruto, Sasuke, you two also go back to the village with Kakashi. Yes. Naruto and Sasuke respectfully saluted Hyojin. Putting aside the identity of Naruto and the leader of Amatsukami, Hyojin's current strength alone is enough to make Naruto and Sasuke feel awe. Therefore, although they have received the gift of Sage of the Six Paths, and one step into the Six Paths level, their respect for Hyojin has not diminished in the slightest. On the contrary, it has deepened a lot because of this battle. After sending away Kakashi, Naruto, and Sasuke, Hyojin said to Obsidian, Let's go. Obsidian hurriedly used Kamui on the Tentails. However, Obsidian, who has lost the Rinnegan, could not suppress the Tentails at all. As soon as the vortex of Kamui spread to the Tentails, he received a backlash from the huge chakra of the Tentails. At this moment, the eye of the moon between Hyojin's eyebrows glared fiercely, and the violent Tentails became obedient again, gradually being swallowed by the twisting vortex. Then, Hyojin and Obsidian also disappeared with the vortex from Otsutsuki Kagaya's prime sphere. Hohu, after returning to the Kamui space, Obsidian lay on the ground and panted heavily. Without the Tentails and the Rinnegan, Obsidian had now fallen back to his original state. Although the strength of the chakra had increased after the baptism of the Tentails Jinchuriki, there was no way to fight against the Tentails anymore. Hyojin looked around and said, We can build a biological laboratory here, and a large training ground over there. Listening to Hyojin's plan, Obsidian, who was still panting, wondered, Kuroto, what are you doing? Hyojin gently patted Obsidian's shoulder and said, From now on, you will be my warehouse manager. Obsidian's face was dull. Warehouse manager? I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1392. Commandeering Obsidian's Hokage space is not a temporary whim of Hyojin. He has long wanted to have a different space that belongs to him. Now that he has mastered Yomi Biraban coupled with the eye of the moon on his forehead, he can mark 2 or 3 different spaces for a long time, so he decided to use 2 of them on Otsutsuki Kagaya's Hokage space and Obsidian's Hokage space. As for letting Obito be the warehouse manager, he had also considered it. First, Obsidian has a very rich experience in using spacetime ninjutsu, and he is extremely vigilant in the face of enemies who have also mastered spacetime ninjutsu. It must be known that things like different spaces are forbidden areas that ordinary ninjas can't set foot in, but it is nothing for Otsutsuki. Therefore, Hokage space is not absolutely safe. Someone must be stationed there for a long time, and Obsidian, the owner of Hokage space, is undoubtedly the best candidate. Second, even if Hyojin makes an exception to save Obsidian, it is not convenient to let Obsidian wander around in front of everyone. Because even if you don't take into account the feelings of other villages, Mai alone has killed many ninjas in the 4th Shinobi War, so it is better to let Obsidian live in the shadows. As for whether Obsidian will defect again, Hyojin is not too worried in this regard. The main thing is that Obsidian himself is not a greedy and cunning person. What he did before is the same as Madara Uchiha. He wants to build a dream world where there are no losers and everyone's dreams can be realized. This kind of idiotic person would typically be stubborn to the end, just like how Obito refused to give up despite all the setbacks. No matter how many blows he suffered, all he wanted to do was revive Ten Tails and activate Infinite Tsukuyomi. But if he truly admitted defeat, this kind of person would not easily betray him. In addition, after losing the Rinnegan, Obsidian can't suppress the Ten Tails, so even if he has any bad intentions, he can't do anything to the Ten Tails with just his pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. After placing Ten Tails and sealing it slightly, Hyojin told Obsidian, "You made Ten Tails, so I'll leave it to you to guard it for the time being. This is also part of your atonement." "I understand." Obsidian nodded calmly. The only meaning of his life now was to atone for the crimes he had committed. Therefore, he would unconditionally carry out Hyojin's arrangements. After explaining, Suijin once again activated Yomi Biraban and walked into the space gate. When he walked out of the space gate again, he had already arrived at the side of the river Styx, the Mitsutsu River. Now that the 4th Shinobi War has been quelled by him, he can take the time to deal with the trouble of Otsutsuki Samurai. Following the traces on the ground, Kuroto searched all the way and soon found Otsutsuki Samurai, who was looking for a way to return to the shinobi world in the upper reaches of the river Styx. "It's you." After being stunned for a moment, Otsutsuki Samurai immediately activated the Tenseigan chakra mode, and his whole body flew like a blue stream of light. And in the process of flying, he condensed the truth-seeking balls behind him into his palm and activated the strongest attack of the Tenseigan, the Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, and stabbed fiercely towards Hyojin. Looking at the dazzling golden sword stabbing towards him, Hyojin laughed for a while. It has always been him using the Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion to kill others, but today it was someone else using the Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, which really made him a little uncomfortable. Soon, like a stream of light, Otsutsuki Samurai rushed in front of Hyojin, and the dazzling golden sword in his hand stabbed towards Hyojin's heart. But Hyojin didn't make any extra movements. He just slowly raised his right hand and greeted Otsutsuki Samurai's golden sword. Boom! Otsutsuki Samurai's Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion stabbed Hyojin's palm, and immediately there was a burst of sound. Then, the dazzling golden sword seemed to be unable to move forward. It had to split into several golden lights and refracted in all directions. This? Seeing that his strongest pupil technique was easily blocked by Hyojin with one hand, Otsutsuki Samurai's eyes widened, and his bright eyes were full of doubts and puzzlement. Hyojin chuckled, then reached forward with his right hand and instantly grabbed Otsutsuki Samurai's neck. Like the current Naruto and Sasuke, Otsutsuki Samurai, who has the Tenseigan, is also an incomplete six-path level, and such strength has no room for resistance in front of Hyojin, a qualified Kekii snare. After all, Hyojin is not like Otsutsuki Kagaya, who can't take down Naruto and Sasuke after struggling for a long time. Why is this happening? Otsutsuki Samurai, who was strangled, asked with difficulty. Such an inexplicable failure was really hard for him to accept. "Are you confused?" Chuckling, Kuroto said, "Your arrogance doesn't match your strength at all." Otsutsuki Samurai continued to ask, "Who are you? Why do you have the Tenseigan?" At this time, Hyojin slammed Otsutsuki Samurai to the ground, then stepped on Otsutsuki Samurai's head, and asked indifferently, "A weakling like you, What right do you have to ask me where my Tenseigan came from? Being asked by Hyojin, Otsutsuki Samurai was stunned. At this time, Hyojin kicked Otsutsuki Samurai out, and then said calmly, "The giant Tenseigan on the moon has been dealt with by me." "What? You? How dare you?" Otsutsuki Samurai suddenly got up from the ground, and he was furious. Hyojin looked at him coldly. "Do you have a problem with that?" "I'm going to kill you!" Otsutsuki Samurai roared and rushed at Hyojin again. Par with a casual slap, Hyojin sent Otsutsuki Samurai flying. Then, he said, "Why? Are you still reluctant to part with the giant Tenseigan that symbolizes the sins of your branch family?" Otsutsuki Samurai said, "What do you mean?" Hyojin said indifferently, "Didn't your elders tell you that your branch family used that giant Tenseigan to slaughter all the members of the main family on the moon and dug out their Byakugan as nourishment for the giant Tenseigan?" Otsutsuki Samurai was shocked. "You? What nonsense are you talking about?" "Nonsense?" Hyojin's figure flashed, and he grabbed Otsutsuki Samurai while activating Yomi Birasuka, bringing Otsutsuki Samurai back to the moon. There are only 3 days left in June. Those who have monthly votes, don't forget to vote. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1393. Holding Otsutsuki Samurai, Hyojin strolled in a ruin on the moon. Judging from the scale, this ruin obviously belonged to a larger town level before it was abandoned. There were many buildings and complicated streets. It would not be a problem for thousands of people to live here. If they squeezed a little, tens of thousands of people could live here. Hyojin looked around and asked casually, "What is this place?" Otsutsuki Samurai did not answer, but remained silent with a look of resistance. "Humph!" Hyojin snorted lightly and then walked toward the depths of the ruin without stopping. Soon, under the inside of his Tenseigan, he found that there seemed to be a faint chakra reaction in the depths of the ruin, and these chakra reactions were the Byakugan chakra that he was very familiar with. How could this be? Otsutsuki Samurai, who also sensed this faint chakra reaction, frowned and was slightly taken aback. Obviously, he, who had been living on the moon, knew very well that after the death of several elders, he was the only one left on the entire moon. "So it's really hidden here," with a smile. Kuroto's figure flickered and disappeared from the spot. After a while, Hyojin took Otsutsuki Samurai to a large tomb deep underground in the ruins, where the previous chakra fluctuations came from. "What is this place?" Looking at the rows of tombs in front of him that were deep in the darkness and almost endless, Otsutsuki Samurai was shocked. He had lived on the moon for so long, but he had never heard of such a large group of tombs on the moon. If all the people buried here were of the same race, then the number of people buried here would be no less than the people enshrined in the lookout. Hyojin said indifferently, "If I'm not mistaken, this should be the last cemetery of the main family." The main family? Otsutsuki Samurai was even more confused. Throwing Otsutsuki Samurai to the ground, Hyojin said, "The Otsutsuki clan on the moon are all descendants of Otsutsuki Himura, the second son of the ancestor of Chakra Otsutsuki Kagaya, and these descendants are divided into the main family and the branch family." Otsutsuki Samurai listened attentively. Hyojin continued, "In the following years, the two sides were at peace, until Otsutsuki Himura passed away. The branch family, which was in a vassal position, began to plot a rebellion and developed the giant chakra Tenseigan." Hearing this, Otsutsuki Samurai muttered to himself, "No, the giant chakra Tenseigan is not a weapon to kill people, it is the treasure of our Otsutsuki clan." Ignoring Otsutsuki Samurai, Hyojin continued, "The existence of the giant chakra Tenseigan reversed the strength of the two sides. The branch family rebelled successfully and slaughtered all the members of the main family. They used the Byakugan of the main family as nourishment and integrated it into the giant chakra Tenseigan of the branch family. From then on, there was only the branch family left on the moon, so..." After a pause, Hyojin looked at Otsutsuki Samurai and said, "So you are also a member of the branch family, the last descendant of the branch family." Otsutsuki Samurai shouted hysterically, "No, this is impossible, this is impossible. You are talking nonsense, we are not the branch family, we did not betray the ancestors. The ancestors' last wish was for us to clean up the failed ninja world created by the Sage of Six Paths, and we have been working hard for the ancestors' last wish." Hyojin shrugged and said, "Then how do you explain these thousands of tombs?" Otsutsuki Samurai was suddenly speechless. If the people buried here were all of the same clan, there was no reason for the elders to hide such a large number of tombs from him. The reasonable explanation was that either the elders did not know about the existence of this place, or the elders had other reasons to hide the truth. He is right. At this moment, an old voice came from the shadows deep in the tomb area. Otsutsuki Samurai quickly looked over and found a spiritual body walking out of the shadows, and the appearance of the spiritual body was almost the same as the ancestor stone statue enshrined in the lookout. Otsutsuki Samurai asked in surprise, You are? Kuroda was surprised and said, finally willing to show up. At this time, the spiritual body gradually approached and replied, "This old man is Otsutsuki Himura." Then, one spiritual body after another appeared from the tombs, and then they all knelt and saluted the spiritual body, who claimed to be Otsutsuki Himura. Ancestor? Otsutsuki Samurai, who got an affirmative answer, was shocked. Hyojin, who was on the side, paid attention to the surroundings. He faintly found that this tomb area seemed to have been transformed by Otsutsuki Himura into a special environment similar to the Pure Land of the underworld, so the spiritual bodies of these dead members of the Otsutsuki main family could be maintained for a long time. Otherwise, with the strength of these members of the main family, it would be impossible for the spiritual bodies to be maintained for so long without collapsing. At this time, Otsutsuki Himura said to Otsutsuki Samurai, "Unfortunately, what he said is true. The branch family launched a rebellion and used the giant Tenseigan to destroy the main family." After saying that, Otsutsuki Himura used chakra to reenact the rebellion in front of Otsutsuki Samurai. Looking at the scene of the branch family slaughtering the main family with the giant Tenseigan, Otsutsuki Samurai lost his soul and kept saying, "How could this be? How could this be?" Hyojin did not interrupt at this time. After all, he did not know much about the war between the main family and the branch family on the moon, so he listened to Otsutsuki Himura's explanation and retreated to the side. After listening to Otsutsuki Himura's description of the dispute that year, Hyojin was speechless. If the Sage of the Six Paths Otsutsuki Yui watched his two sons fight in the shinobi world because he was disheartened, then Otsutsuki Himura watched the branch family slaughter the main family because he was really frightened by the cruelty and viciousness of the branch family. After all, he was not good at fighting, and at that time, he was only left with his spiritual body. He was no longer a complete Six Paths shinobi, and the branch family created the giant Tenseigan. Even if he came forward, he may not be able to stop the branch family, so he endured. And he, as the ancestor of the branch family, did not come forward to intervene, which undoubtedly gave the rebel branch family more confidence. After the successful rebellion, the branch family even had the illusion that the ancestor of the Six Paths wanted them to destroy the incompetent main family, and that the main family's mission was only to guard the demon statue of the outer path on the moon, and not to interfere in the shinobi world. Since the ancestor of the Six Paths wanted the branch family to destroy the main family, there is no doubt that the ancestor had other requirements for the branch family. Therefore, the mission of cleaning up the failed shinobi world created by the Sage of the Six Paths was put forward by the branch family in the name of the ancestor's last wish, because only in this way can they prove the legitimacy of their rebellion. Just as Hyojin was thinking about it, Otsutsuki Himura, who had finished explaining everything, turned to him and asked, "Young Otsutsuki, you are also my descendant, right?" I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1394. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In a burst of wind-breaking sound, an Umbu team shuttled through the forest. Their speed was as fast as a group of ghosts under the night sky. After a while, the Umbu team stopped in an open space in the forest. As the captain observed the surroundings, he silently made a hand gesture. The team members who understood his meaning nodded tacitly, then quickly spread out and carefully inspected the surroundings. After a long time, the scattered team members regrouped and reported to the captain. Nothing. The Umbu captain's face immediately sank and asked a ninja beside him, "Is it here or not? Don't tell me you got the wrong place?" The ninja shook his head again and again. "It can't be wrong, I just checked with the chief commander, it's here, the error is not more than 50 meters. The captain's expression became solemn and whispered, "That's strange." "Yes, it's too strange." The other members of the team also nodded in agreement. The task of this team is very simple, that is, to track the location of Nagato and Orochimaru according to the chakra reaction sensed by the General Command. And according to the intelligence of the General Command, the last chakra reaction of Nagato and Orochimaru is here. In addition, the perceptive water ball located in the General Command also sensed a strange chakra reaction that has never been sensed before, and the most puzzling thing is that the peak of this strange chakra fluctuation actually reached the level of Sixth Path for a short period of time. This discovery once made the General Command mistakenly think that it was Hyojin or Uchiha Obsidian. Uchiha Madara had appeared there. After all, there are only a few six-path sages in the shinobi world. But when Kakashi brought the body of Uchiha Madara back to Mai, and the news that Hyojin had successfully sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya, and Orochimaru's abnormal channeling of the second and fourth generations, the people in the General Command found that the six-path chakra fluctuation that appeared here is not the six-path sage's Hyojin, Uchiha Obsidian, or Uchiha Madara. In this way, the problem is serious, because this matter not only involves the original Akatsuki leader Nagato, but also Orochimaru, one of the Sannin who defected to Mai, and may even involve an unknown six-path sages. Therefore, the GCH immediately sent out this elite team to investigate. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a while, a few more figures arrived here, and a huge clay bird appeared in the air. Obviously, the General Command was not at ease, so they sent a more elite team, and the commander of this team was none other than the other two of the Sannin of Mai, Jiraiya and Tsunade, Deadale of Rock Village, May of Mist Village, Pakura of Sand Crypsis, and Druid of Cloud Village. After meeting with the Umbu team, Jiraiya asked eagerly, "What did you find?" The captain of the Umbu team reported, "We found some traces of battle, but," Tsunade urged, "if you found anything, just say it directly, don't hesitate." The Umbu captain pointed to the places around that they have marked and said, "These are all our findings." Jiraiya immediately said, "This is impossible." The perceptive ball reflected that there was a six-path chakra fluctuation here. How can there be so few traces of battle? The battle of six-path sages, Hyojin and Obsidian have vividly demonstrated it to the shinobi world once, so if there really was a six-path sages here, the traces of battle would not be so few. The Umbu captain looked helpless. "I'm sorry, we only found these traces." Tsunade carefully checked the traces of battle marked by the Umbu team around, nodding and frowning from time to time as if she found something difficult to understand. Mei Ming also looked around and asked, "What did you find?" Tsunade was a little puzzled. According to these traces of battle, Nagato, Orochimaru, Kimimaro and others seem to have fought here, but something is wrong. Jiraiya nodded gently. "Well, judging from the traces, it seems that the two sides just tried to test each other, and then shook hands and made peace. But there are no footprints of them leaving here, and there are no traces of the scene being cleaned." Dalui added, "I didn't find any traces of the mysterious person who is suspected to be an immortal in these traces of battle." Pakura said in a deep voice. I didn't find it either. There was a battle at the scene, but there was no expected large-scale environmental destruction. There were traces of Nagato, Orochimaru and others fighting, but there were no traces of them leaving, and there were no traces of them cleaning the battlefield. There were no traces of the strange immortal reflected in the perceptive ball. All of the above was contrary to the speculation of the general command, which made people feel confused. At this moment Deadale, who was on the clay bird in the air, landed in the forest, then glanced around slightly and curled his lips. It can't be, Nagato and Orochimaru are also considered experts, but they were defeated so easily? Deadale's words suddenly cleared the fog in everyone's hearts. Whether it was Jiraiya or Tsunade, they all believed that it was Orochimaru who attacked Nagato, and following this train of thought, the scene in front of them was naturally strange everywhere. But according to Deadale's idea, Orochimaru and Nagato were not enemies, but joined forces in front of a strong enemy, coupled with the reaction of the strange 6th level chakra on the perceptive ball, then the traces at the scene can be explained. Mei was still a little puzzled. In addition to your village's Fudame-sama, as well as the people defeated by Fudame-sama, Uchiha Obsidian, Uchiha Madara, and Otsutsuki Kagaya, is there anyone else in the shinobi world who can defeat Nagato and Orochimaru in an instant? Jiraiya and Tsunade were silent. This is also the reason why they didn't think in this direction at first, because they instinctively ruled out the existence of people in the shinobi world who can easily defeat Nagato and Orochimaru. Moreover, at that time, Orochimaru was accompanied by Yakushi-do, Kimimaro, Yugo, and Yamato. When these people faced the Obsidian as the Jubi's Jinchuriki, they caused a lot of trouble for the Obsidian, so it's hard to imagine that in the shinobi world, besides Hyojin, who can erase them silently and without leaving any traces. And the lawless Deadale lacked due respect for the former leader of the Akatsuki, Nagato, and one of the Sannin, Orochimaru, so he was the fastest to infer what happened here. The second update is here. It's going to be a new week soon, and the list will be updated, so I beg everyone to recommend and support it. It's nothing, please. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Apex. Chapter 1395. On the Moon. In the face of Otsutsuki Himura's question, Hyojin said flatly, in terms of biology, I should be regarded as your descendant, but I am not an Otsutsuki. My name is Hyojin. Hyojin? Otsutsuki Himura was stunned for a while before he reacted. Obviously, the Hyuga clan that was stranded in the shinobi world had no place in this ancestor's heart. If Hyojin didn't take the initiative to mention it, he wouldn't have thought of it at all. Seeing this, Hyojin didn't introduce the Hyuga clan more. The ancestor in front of him couldn't even protect his direct bloodline on the moon, so it was meaningless to mention more about the Hyuga clan to him. Otsutsuki Himura was a little puzzled, staring at Hyojin's eyes full of confusion. If you are a Hyuga clan, then why is the power of your bloodline higher than that of the Hyuga clan? And the strength of your chakra is very close to that of my mother Otsutsuki Kagaya, and it has completely surpassed my heyday. Listening to Otsutsuki Himura's question, Otsutsuki Samurai on the side looked at Hyojin with a dull face. From the battle just now, he already knew that Hyojin was very strong, and he was no match for him at all, but he never thought that Hyojin was so strong that even the ancestor was ashamed of himself. How is this possible? Otsutsuki Samurai murmured with a look of disbelief on his face. I have achieved Kekkei Genkai. After a pause, Hyojin said in a calm tone, as for Otsutsuki Kagaya, she has escaped from your and your brother's seal not long ago. Otsutsuki Himura's face suddenly changed. What? Hyojin glanced at Otsutsuki Himura. From his reaction, he was sure that Otsutsuki Himura was indeed weaker than his brother, the Sage of Six Paths. After being reduced to a spiritual state, his perception of chakra had been greatly reduced. He did not even notice the resurrection of Otsutsuki Kagaya. Of course, this was also due to Otsutsuki Kagaya's use of Heaven's Defense to move the battlefield to the primal sphere as soon as he was resurrected. At this time, Hamura looked at Hyojin anxiously and said, "You must stop her, otherwise the entire shinobi world will be destroyed in her hands." Hyojin said lightly, "Oh, she has already been sealed by me." Hamura, who was about to continue to say something, suddenly choked. "What? You've sealed her?" Hyojin said, "What's so strange about that? I am a stronger Kekkei net than you and Otsutsuki Yuki. What you can do, of course, I can also do." With the increase in strength, Hyojin increasingly felt that Otsutsuki Kagaya, Otsutsuki Yuki, and Hamura, the mother and son, had no fighting talent at all. They were the typical example of people who have strength but are not good at using it. Otsutsuki Hamura looked at Hyojin with a complicated expression, and after a long time, he said faintly, "The shinobi world is in your hands." Hyojin nodded, and then asked Otsutsuki Samurai, who was sitting on the ground, "Now you should know how stupid the things you insisted on before are, right?" "I was wrong." Otsutsuki Samurai lowered his head, and there was no longer any arrogance in his bright eyes. Hyojin then said, "As the last descendant of the branch family who slaughtered your own people, have you thought about how to atone for your sins?" Otsutsuki Samurai stood up and bowed respectfully to Hyojin. "After I die, please return my eyes to the Hyuga clan, and convey my apology to Hyuga Hayashi-sama, who took my Byakugan." Hyojin said in a playful tone, "Do you want to die?" Feeling the gaze of the spirit bodies in front of him, Otsutsuki Samurai said with a resolute face, "The sins committed by the elders must be borne by someone, and I am the last member of the branch family. Let me end the grievances between the main family and the branch family." Hyojin smiled. "That's a good idea. If you die, the Otsutsuki family on the moon will be extinct." Otsutsuki Samurai's expression froze. Otsutsuki Hamura on the side also had a strange expression. After deliberately ignoring Otsutsuki Samurai, who was a little embarrassed in front of the ancestor for a while, Hyojin waved his hand. "Come back to the shinobi world with me. There are a lot of people who need to atone for their sins recently." Otsutsuki Hamura secretly breathed a sigh of relief and quickly told Otsutsuki Samurai, "Listen to his arrangements and go to the shinobi world to live a good life." Otsutsuki Hamura also did not want to see his bloodline on the moon completely cut off, not to mention that Otsutsuki Samurai knew nothing about the rebellion of the branch family. He was completely living in the lies of the elders. It was not appropriate to let him bear the sins of the branch family. Otsutsuki Samurai, who was a little hesitant, quickly bowed and accepted the order after listening to Otsutsuki Hamura's words. "Yes, ancestor." Hyojin no longer talked nonsense and directly activated Yomi Hirasaka and returned to my village with Otsutsuki Samurai. The village was still in a state of martial law, and the streets were full of ninjas coming and going in a hurry. The chilling atmosphere of the war still enveloped the entire my village. When they saw Hyojin, all the ninjas stopped involuntarily and saluted Hyojin together. Then, cheers sounded. At this time, the light of dawn passed through the night and sprinkled on the land of the shinobi world. The sun representing hope and new life slowly rose from the horizon, with its warm and bright sunshine, dispelling the smoke and blood that permeated the battlefield. Facing the eager eyes of everyone, Hyojin announced, "The Fourth Shinobi World War is over." This Fourth Shinobi World War, which was provoked by Uchiha Obsidian and involved almost all the shinobi villages, with the intervention of Hyojin, after a night of fierce fighting, finally ended after Otsutsuki Kagaya was successfully sealed. With the announcement of Hyojin, the cheers became even more enthusiastic, and soon spread from one street to another, and then the whole village, and finally, even the ninjas who treated the wounded and cleaned the battlefield outside the village cheered. It seems that with Hyojin's words, the clouds of war that shrouded my village and the threat of death that shrouded everyone's hearts disappeared. Although the duration of the Fourth Shinobi World War was not long, the intensity was unprecedented. Just the battle between Uchiha Madara and the tens of thousands of ninjas led by the 5 Kages caused tens of thousands of casualties in just half a day. So no matter who it was, at this moment they were more or less glad. Glad that this terrible war was finally over, glad that they were still alive, glad that there was a powerful immortal like Hyojin on their side. The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes, Apex. Chapter 1396. In the headquarters of the United Ninja Army, the 5 Kage gathered again to convene the first 5 Kage meeting after the Fourth Shinobi World War. Unlike the previous meetings, the atmosphere was much more harmonious this time. Even the hot-tempered 4 generations laying subconsciously lowered his voice when he spoke. It's impossible not to harmonize. After Hyojin's identity as the leader of Amatsukami was exposed, Mai's strength has far exceeded the other 4 villages. Even if Cloud, Rock, Mist, and Sand Crypsis join forces, they have no chance of winning against Mai. Strength is everything, and without strength, they naturally don't have the confidence to speak. After some simple opening remarks, Hyojin looked around at the crowd and said, "About Amatsukami, Mai didn't mean to hide it from everyone. It's mainly to deal with the threat of Akatsuki. I hope everyone can understand." 3 generations Naruto was extremely embarrassed and couldn't help but secretly said, "What do you mean by Mai didn't mean to hide it? The village didn't know about it at all." On the other side, Kakashi was also having a hard time. After Kuroto's identity as the leader of the Amatsukami organization was exposed, he noticed that other people were looking at him strangely, because he was the one who proposed the establishment of a fake Amatsukami during the Gakage Summit, and his analysis was very logical. Now that they think about it, everyone felt that they fell into Kakashi's trap. After a short silence, 4 generations of Kazekage was the first to speak and said with a smile, "Mr. Naruto, you are too polite. Amatsukami is the key to defeating Akatsuki this time. It's the biggest hero of our United Ninja Army." Hyojin smiled and didn't say anything. He slowly moved his eyes to 3 generations of Tsuchikage. Being looked at by Hyojin, the 3 generations Tsuchikage squeezed out a smile. It's okay. Hyojin then looked at 4 generations laying with a kind smile on his face. "Does Cloud Village have any opinions about our approach?" 4 generations laying clenched his fist under the table and sighed. "We, Kumo, have no objections. This time, we were able to defeat the Akatsuki thanks to His Excellency Naruto." Then, the 4 generations of Kazekage, 3 generations Tsuchikage, and 4 generations laying all looked at the 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura on the side, because apart from Mai's 4 great shinobi villages, only the Kiri village hasn't expressed its position yet. Seeing that Yagura didn't seem to have any intention to speak, the atmosphere in the hall became strange. 4 generations laying was startled and said, "Mizukage is so courageous?" 3 generations Tsuchikage was puzzled. He didn't understand why 4 generations Mizukage was so tough. One must know that the current situation in the shinobi world is almost exactly the same as when the great shinobi villages were first built by Mai's first shinobi Naruto and Madara Uchiha, and compared to the past, the current Mai is even stronger. Because 5 generations Naruto Hyojin alone is enough to suppress all disobedience. And even if the sage Hyojin isn't counted, Mai still has 3 generations Naruto, Mai's Sannin, and Naruto's acting Kakashi, as well as the Kage and even Super Kage members of Amatsukami. In this case, the only way to survive is to obediently pretend to be a grandson and pray that Mai still insists on the will of fire. 4 generations of Kazekage slightly shook his head and muttered to himself, "The Mist Village is finished." Mei, who was standing behind Yagura, saw that the situation was not good and immediately whispered in Yagura's ear, "Mizukage-sama, it's your turn to speak." Yagura saw that everyone was looking at him, Some were surprised, some were sympathetic, and some were even secretly happy, so he shrugged and said, "I have nothing to say, I am also a member of Amatsukami." Everyone was shocked, and 4 generations laying directly stood up from his seat. 3 generations Naruto was also surprised. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he held back. Kakashi couldn't help but blurt out, "Mizukage-sama is also a member of Amatsukami?" As soon as Kakashi's voice fell, everyone looked at Kakashi with even more strange eyes as if saying, "You are a bad guy, even now, you are still pretending." Kakashi didn't know how to defend himself, so he shut his mouth gloomily. At this time, Hyojin smiled and waved his hand, sit down, sit down." 4 generations laying sat back, but his face was still full of disbelief. He never thought that the Mizukage-sama, the shadow of the village, would secretly join Amatsukami. Not to mention him, even Mei and Ching who were standing behind Yagoro were dumbfounded. Hyojin said, "Mizukage-sama is an old member of Amatsukami. In order to deal with the threat of Akatsuki, Mizukage-sama secretly joined Amatsukami and fought with us secretly against Akatsuki. Seeing that Kiri has already stood together with Konoha for a long time, even closer than him as an ally of Konoha, Yondaime Kazekage couldn't help but curse. I really can't judge a book by its cover, I didn't expect Yagura to be so treacherous." 3 generations Tsuchikage's face also became more and more ugly. Before, they didn't have the slightest chance of winning when it was 4 against 1, and now it was 3 against 2. So he secretly worried. "I hope that Mai still believes in the will of fire, otherwise it will be unimaginable." Hyojin said, "Well, let's stop talking about Amatsukami. Next, let's talk about the aftermath after the war." 3 generations Tsuchikage immediately winked at 4 generations laying. 4 generations laying hesitated and then said, "Mr. Naruto, since we are talking about the aftermath, I would like to ask, when is Mai going to return the tailed beasts that were taken away by Akatsuki? Unfortunately, when we sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya, Jubi was also sealed. By the way, didn't Kakashi tell you about this?" After that, Hyojin looked at Kakashi. Kakashi just wanted to speak, but found that everyone looked away as if they already knew what he was going to say, so he said awkwardly, "Indeed, Jubi was also sealed." 3 generations Tsuchikage looked at Hyojin. "So, we can't get the tailed beasts back anymore?" Hyojin said with a straight face, "How can that be? The tailed beasts belong to whoever. When the seal is lifted, I will find a way to return the tailed beasts to everyone." 3 generations Tsuchikage asked, "Mr. Naruto, when will the seal be lifted?" Hyojin said with some embarrassment, "It's hard to say. Once the seal is lifted, Otsutsuki Kagaya will be free. I was able to successfully seal Otsutsuki Kagaya this time because of luck. I was almost defeated, so I can't easily lift the seal before I am ready." Listening to Hyojin's solemn words, the Kage didn't ask any more questions. After all, they didn't want any accidents to happen. Compared with Hyojin, Otsutsuki Kagaya, the evil god who wanted to hang everyone on a tree to collect chakra, was undoubtedly more terrifying. Kakashi, who recalled that Hyojin sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya with one move, had a strange look on his face at this time. There is only 1 day left in June. Students who still have monthly tickets, don't forget to vote. After tomorrow, the monthly tickets will be refreshed. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1397. When the matter of the tailed beast was pushed by Hyojin to Otsutsuki Kagaya, the topic naturally couldn't go on. Although the Kage's faces were very ugly, they couldn't do anything about it. They didn't even have a reason to complain. After a moment of silence, the 3 generations of Tsuchikage suddenly said, "Let's not talk about the tailed beast for the time being, we should discuss the punishment of war criminals now." Kakashi's eyes narrowed when he heard this, and he became nervous. Now that Uchiha Madara is dead, and even his body has been brought back to the village, Only Uchiha Obsidian and the Akatsuki members under Obsidian can be called war criminals. And ordinary Akatsuki members obviously can't be compared with Obsidian, who once became the Jinchuriki of Jubi. Sure enough, 4 generations of Lei immediately said. At present, only Uchiha Madara is confirmed to be dead, and Uchiha Obsidian, who initiated the war, is missing. Hyojin spread his hands and said slowly. The Jubi in Uchiha Obsidian's body was taken away by Uchiha Madara. Although he escaped by using spacetime ninjutsu, in theory, he will die without the Jubi, so he is probably dead in some corner of the shinobi world. For generations of Kazekage asked, so it will be difficult for us to arrest him? Yes. Hyojin nodded. For generations of Lei Ying's face was gloomy, and then said, even if it is difficult to find Uchiha Obsidian, we can't just let him go, can we? Hyojin said, yes, so I propose to form a temporary team to search for the Akatsuki members hiding in the shinobi world. I agree. I also agree. No problem. The Kage, who have already been traumatized by the Akatsuki, nodded and agreed with Hyojin's proposal. Currently, the missing members of the Akatsuki include White Zetsu, who escaped from the battlefield, Sasori, Bipa Juzo, Dry Persimmon Demon Mermaid, Ryu, Black Ho-Rhea, and Nagato, Conan, Kakuzu, and Flying Dan. If they gathered together, they would be a force to be reckoned with. It may not pose any threat to the current Mai, but it is enough to threaten all the other shinobi villages. 3 generations of Tsuchikage suddenly changed the topic and said to Hyojin in a sincere tone, Naruto-sama, this time the war was completely provoked by the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian, the 2 Uchiha slaughtered thousands of our ninjas, so please investigate the Uchiha clan to see if there are any of their accomplices. As soon as 3 generations of Tsuchikage's voice fell, there were many voices of agreement in the hall, and many people nodded again and again. There were Rock, Cloud, Sand Crypsis, Mist, and even some Mai's ninjas. Hyojin slightly narrowed his eyes, but his face still had a gentle smile. 3 generations of Tsuchikage's proposal seems reasonable, but in fact it hides vicious intentions. Others associate the Uchiha clan with the Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian, who launched the 4th Shinobi War, which undoubtedly wants to transfer the hatred of the ninja coalition against the dead Uchiha Madara and the missing Uchiha Obsidian to the Uchiha clan. In this way, there will be a gap between the Uchiha clan and Mai. Today, the Uchiha clan not only has a large number of Manjikyu Uchiha, but also Uchiha Sasuke, who has the Rinnegan of Magatama, which is extremely strong. Once the Uchiha clan is alienated from Mai, then Mai's strength will be greatly reduced. This is just like when Uchiha Madara and the first Naruto fell out, which led to the rapid collapse of Mai's hegemony in a few years, and entered a period of decades of weakness, which gave the other 4 villages the opportunity to challenge Mai. Of course, as long as Mai has the sage Hyojin, then direct internal strife is impossible. At most, there will be some hostility and friction between the 2 sides, but this is the only way that the 3 generations can think of to weaken Mai and create trouble for Mai. When Kakashi saw everyone talking, he quickly said, the conspiracy of Uchiha Madara has nothing to do with our Mai Uchiha clan. Don't forget, the Uchiha clan also did their best in this war. Itachi Uchiha, Uchiha Jishue, Uchiha Shinichi, Uchiha Sasuke, and the former patriarch Uchiha Fu all participated in the battle. They are also part of the coalition forces. The crowd was unmoved. In fact, everyone knew that what Kakashi said made sense, but the psychological trauma left by Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian to everyone was too great. So many ninjas, including many Mai ninjas, felt instinctive fear and rejection. This has nothing to do with anything else. It is purely because the Uchiha clan is too strong and too extreme. Hyojin smiled gently and said, don't worry, everyone, I will thoroughly investigate. Kakashi looked at him doubtfully. Kuroto, Hyojin waved his hand. Our Mai has always convinced people with reason. The Kage secretly breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this. This is not only because Hyojin agreed with them to thoroughly investigate the Uchiha clan, but also because Hyojin showed reason, which dispelled the fear in their hearts. This meeting of the 5 Kage is not so much a meeting to deal with the aftermath of the war. It is better to say that the major ninja villages test the Mai to see how Hyojin, the immortal who dominates the ninja world, will deal with the affairs of the ninja world. Now, seeing that Kuroto is not the kind of extreme power-hungry person who has no ambition to unify the shinobi world like the first Hokage, all of them were relieved to see that Kuroto is not the kind of extreme power-hungry person who has no ambition of unifying the shinobi world. For other ninja villages, they can admit defeat, and even accept to become a vassal of Mai to a certain extent, but they will never accept the fate of being annexed by Mai. Just like they know that they are not the opponent of the 6-path obsidian, they will fight to the death. In the matter of survival, even in the face of an invincible immortal, they will not retreat. For generations Laying said again, Mr. Naruto, although Uchiha Madara is dead, his Rinnegan is still there. What should we do with this pair of Rinnegan? In an instant, everyone's eyes in the venue were cast on Hyojin. If the Rinnegan of Madara Uchiha was similar to the Rinnegan of the 6-path sage, so it got the title of Immortal's Eyes, then after the experience of Uchiha Obsidian and Madara Uchiha, this pair of Rinnegan is worthy of the title of Immortal's Eyes. Therefore, this pair of eyes is almost equivalent to the power of the Super Kage level. It is a step for mortals to reach the realm of immortals. The first update is for the monthly votes in the last half of June. Chapter 1398. For ninjas who live on the edge of a knife, strength is the foundation of foothold, so when the topic involves the Rinnegan of Uchiha Madara, everyone's nerves were touched. Because Uchiha Obsidian showed the power of a sage in front of everyone. The kind of power that treats Kage-level powerhouses as ants is irresistible to everyone present. But everyone, including the 4 generations of Laying, also understood that the ownership of the Rinnegan is only a matter of Hyojin's words. If Hyojin wants to act shamelessly, no one can do anything about it. Hyojin smiled and said, Laying, what do you think? Just say it. 4 generations of Laying glanced at the 3 generations of Tsuchikage and 4 generations of Kazekage, and then said bluntly, In the war against the Akatsuki organization and against Madara Uchiha, our 5 villages are won. Now that Madara Uchiha has been killed, the Rinnegan left by him should also belong to the common spoils of war of our 5 villages. Hyojin gently nodded. Yes. Because in this war, each village did not participate in the war alone, but formed a ninja coalition, so according to the agreement on the alliance ceremony, the spoils of war should be shared. Although the Rinnegan left by Madara Uchiha is very sensitive, it is clearly written in black and white in the covenant, so it undoubtedly belongs to the spoils of war. 3 generations of Naruto's face is a little ugly at the moment. He signed the covenant on behalf of Mai. Now other villages want to use this as an excuse to get a share of the Rinnegan, which makes him very uncomfortable. On the side, Koharu, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and the others were also unhappy. The Rinnegan was a strategic-level treasure, and no one wanted to give it away. It was just that they couldn't put down their pride and act shamelessly because of the covenant. Seeing Hyojin nodded, 3 generations of Tsuchikage tentatively said, Since it is a common spoils of war, then each village should have the right to study the Rinnegan, right? Yes. Hyojin pondered a little, then nodded. 3 generations of Tsuchikage said, We, Rock Village, apply to study the Rinnegan. The time limit can be set by everyone. We absolutely do not covet the Rinnegan, we just want to study the mystery of the Rinnegan. With 3 generations of Tsuchikage speaking, 4 generations of Laying, and 4 generations of Kazekage also applied. The high-level members of Mai's side all resisted, but they couldn't open their mouths to refuse, so they could only remain silent with gloomy faces. Only Hyojin remained gentle, and even waved his hand indifferently. In this regard have no opinion. Soon, everyone discussed the order of the study of the Rinnegan. The custody of the Rinnegan belongs to Mai, but the other villages have the right to study it. The first one to study it is Rock Village, followed by Cloud, Sand Crypsis, and Mist Village. The time limit for each village to study it is 3 months. After discussing the placement of the Rinnegan, everyone talked about Nagato and Orochi Maru. Although both Nagato and Orochi Maru are wanted criminals, because they also participated in the battle against the Obsidian, everyone has different opinions on how to deal with them. However, this is not the focus of everyone's discussion. The focus of everyone's discussion was on the strange disappearance of Nagato and Orochi Maru, as well as the strange six-path chakra that appeared at the scene. After reading the investigation report, even Hyojin couldn't help but frown. Although he didn't experience the battle between Nagato and the Obsidian, he learned from various reports that Nagato has a pair of pupillary Kekii Genkai eyes that are different from any known pupillary Kekii in the shinobi world. In appearance, it is somewhat similar to the Byakugan and the Tenseigan, and it seems to have the ability to interfere with time and space. Nagato, who has the special eyes, is not weak, and he caused a lot of trouble for the Obsidian on the battlefield, plus Orochi Maru, Kimimaro, Yugo, and Yamato. Such a lineup is more than enough to sweep away any ninja below the six-path level. If everything is as the report says, then the one who attacked them is not as simple as a six-path level. Is there another six-path hidden in the shinobi world? Could it be the six-path sage? With doubts in his mind, Kuroda ended the Gakage tournament. After leaving the summit, the 4 generations, Lei Ying, and 4 generations of Kazekage were excited. This meeting not only confirmed Hyojin's attitude, but also obtained the qualification to study the Rinnegan, which is undoubtedly a huge victory for them. The 3 generations, on the other hand, frowned and seemed to be thinking about something. The 4 generations of Kazekage asked, "Tsushikage-sama, Naruto's attitude is clear. Now we should have nothing to worry about, right?" "I hope so," the 3 generations of Kazekage said, but his brows were still frowning. For some reason, he always felt that Hyojin won't be so easy to talk to. After all, when Haku accidentally discovered the identity of the leader of Amatsukami, the leader of Amatsukami personally took them to the hospital to visit Haku. That scene at that time is ironic, so the 3 generations of Tsuchikage couldn't help but ask secretly, will Mai's 5th generation be the same as their Hashirama? On the other side of Mai. After leaving the summit, Kakashi quickly caught up with Hyojin. "Kuroda, are you really going to give the Rinnegan to other villages to study?" Hyojin smiled. "What's wrong?" Kakashi said in a deep voice. "Aren't you afraid that there will be an accident during this period? The Rinnegan is very important. If there is an accident and it falls into the hands of ambitious people, I'm afraid it will cause another disaster." Hyojin patted Kakashi's shoulder. "Can we refuse them?" Kakashi hesitated for a moment, but finally shook his head. Without Danzo taking the initiative to take the blame, no one in Mai's upper echelon could put down this kind of face to be ruthless to the allies who fought side by side with them yesterday. Hyojin smiled and didn't say anything more, but launched Yomi Hirasaka, and stepped into the space door alone. In the blink of an eye, Hyojin came to Obsidian's godly power space. After checking the state of Jubi, Hyojin casually said to Obsidian next to him, "You find a way to gather the people of Akatsuki as soon as possible." Obsidian asked, "Are you going to get rid of them?" "Okay, I'll do it now." "Get rid of them?" After a pause, Hyojin smiled and said, "Why do I have to get rid of them? If I get rid of them, where can I find such a good tool?" Obsidian was a little puzzled. "Then what do you mean?" Hyojin smiled and said, "Obsidian, continue to work as the leader of Akatsuki with a bright future. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1399. After giving some instructions to Obsidian, Hyojin once again stepped into the space gate and returned to the Hyuga clan's land. Unlike other areas of the village, the Hyuga clan's land is filled with joy at this time, regardless of men or women, old or young. Everyone has a proud smile on their faces. It seems that they are not affected by the war at all. However, this was also within reason. For any shinobi clan, the emergence of a strong person in their clan is a happy thing, not to mention the emergence of a sage like Hyojin who can suppress the entire shinobi world. And with the revelation of Hyojin's identity as the leader of Amatsukami and the secret that Byakugan can advance to the Tenseigan realm, every Hyuga clansman has more hope in their hearts. Everyone no longer has to be jealous of the fact that Uchiha's Sharingan can evolve into Manjikyu Sharingan. On the contrary, when facing the Uchiha clan, the Hyuga clansmen felt a sense of superiority in their hearts, because compared to the Manjikyu Sharingan, the Tenseigan Kekkei Genkai, which is half a step into the six-path level, is undoubtedly more powerful. Therefore, Hyojin not only brought a great sense of security and honor to the Hyuga clan, but more importantly, he let the Hyuga clansmen see the future, see hope. Therefore, when Hyojin stepped into the Hyuga clan's land, all the clansmen who saw him consciously stood on both sides of the road and saluted him respectfully. And Hyojin did not become arrogant because of his advancement to Kekkei Genkai. He still responded to all the clansmen who saluted him with a smile. It didn't take long for Hyojin to arrive at the Hyuga clan residence. Richa, who had been waiting at the door for a long time, hurriedly greeted him. "Kuroto, you are finally back." Hyojin smiled. "Is Ningxi okay?" Before participating in the Gakage meeting, Hyojin had already brought Ningxi back to the village, but because too many chakra were transferred, Ningxi was still in a coma at that time. Richa replied, "Yes, he has woken up." The two chatted all the way to the hall. In the hall, Hayashi and Otsutsuki Samurai, who was brought back to the village by Hyojin, were sitting opposite each other. They seemed to be talking about something. Seeing that Hyojin had arrived, Otsutsuki Samurai hurriedly got up and bowed before standing to the side. Richa was secretly taken aback. He did not expect that the arrogant Otsutsuki Samurai would be so respectful to Hyojin. It seemed that he regarded himself as a servant. At this time, Ningxi, who was still a little weak, walked out and bowed to Hyojin. Then, like Otsutsuki Samurai, he silently stood behind Hyojin. After sitting down, Hayashi said with a smile, "Just now, Tonari mentioned to me that he wanted to return the Tenseigan to me." Richa was overjoyed when he heard this. If Otsutsuki Samurai returns the Tenseigan to Hayashi, then counting Ningxi, the Hyuga clan will have 3 pairs of Tenseigan. Hyojin shook his head. "His Tenseigan is not stable," Hayashi said with regret. "Yes, Tonari also said that if he loses his chakra, his Tenseigan may degenerate back to the Byakugan state." Richa was startled and looked at Hyojin. "Is that really possible?" "There is such a possibility." After a pause, Hyojin said, "The way he activates the Tenseigan is different from the way I activate the Tenseigan. His Tenseigan is not as stable as mine." Richa asked eagerly, "What about Ningxi's Tenseigan?" Hayashi also leaned forward slightly with a look of concern. Without waiting for Hyojin to answer, Ningxi took the initiative to say, "Patriarch, father, I haven't awakened the Tenseigan yet. The previous Tenseigan was transplanted to Senseigan." "What?" Richa and Hayashi were greatly surprised. Before this, they had always thought that there were 2 pairs of Tenseigan in the Hyuga clan, but after listening to Ningxi's words, they realized that Ningxi's Tenseigan was also Hyojin's. After thinking about it, there is still only 1 pair of Tenseigan in the Hyuga clan, Hyojin. Looking at Hayashi and Richa with a face full of disappointment in front of him, Hyojin couldn't help but laugh. "Do you think the Tenseigan is cabbage? It is much more difficult to awaken the Tenseigan than it is for Uchiha to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan." Otsutsuki Samurai interjected. Yes, our whole clan has tried many methods from top to bottom, but we have not been able to evolve the Byakugan into the Tenseigan. A genius like Kuroto-sama is hard to find in 1,000 years. So that's how it is. Hayashi and Richa understood the difficulty of awakening the Tenseigan. Hyojin smiled. Ningxi has felt my Tenseigan, so as long as he works hard in the future, there is hope for him to awaken his own Tenseigan. Ningxi nodded quickly and said, Tenseigan, I will not let you down. Sigh. With a sigh, Hayashi seemed to have made up his mind and said, Since Ningxi doesn't have the Tenseigan, then I can't destroy the Tenseigan of the Tenseigan. Don't mention the matter of returning the Tenseigan in the future. Otsutsuki Samurai looked at Hyojin and asked for his opinion. Hyojin said, Let's listen to the arrangement of the Patriarch. He naturally doesn't want Otsutsuki Samurai to return the Tenseigan to Hayashi, because if he does, Otsutsuki Samurai will be directly crippled. Hayashi shook his head. I have long been unworthy of the title of Patriarch, so from today on, Kuroto-sama, you are the new Patriarch of the Hyuga clan. What? Hyojin was a little surprised. Hayashi explained. Kuroto-sama, don't refuse, this is the decision of the whole clan. It is indeed time for our Hyuga clan to change, and only you can lead us. At this point, the Hyuga clan headed by Hayashi can no longer be maintained, so the Hyuga clan must face the reality, either change the system of the Hyuga clan or perish, there is no other way to go. Richa persuaded. Kuroto-sama, only you can bear the burden of the Hyuga clan, don't hesitate. Hyojin has no interest in becoming the Patriarch, but since Hayashi took the initiative to give up the position of Patriarch, it would be unreasonable to refuse at this time, so after a little hesitation, Hyojin nodded. Okay then. Hayashi urged. We have already packed up the house for you, move over as soon as possible. Hyojin chuckled lightly. There is no need to be so anxious, right? There is no need to be anxious. With a smile, Richa said. We have already sent out the invitations, now the whole clan has been mobilized, you can rest assured, when the time comes, we will definitely make it lively for you. Hyojin was confused. What invitation? Richa smiled and said, Of course, it's a wedding invitation. The third update is coming. It will be July soon, and I would like to ask for a monthly ticket in your hands. Thank you. In addition, thank you to the classmates who gave gifts today. Thank you. Apex. Chapter 1400. Thank you for everyone's constant support. If it weren't for everyone's tolerance and support, this novel wouldn't have made it to where it is today. This month should be the last time I'm asking for monthly vote. I hope that everyone will continue to support me. Please. Smiley face. Naruto's world in the eyes of reincarnation is asking for monthly votes. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1401. Gently touching the two small horns on Hyojin's head, Kuroto asked carefully, Does it hurt? How can it hurt? Hyojin smiled and shook his head. Kuroto pinched it boldly again, with a curious look on her face. Why do you have horns? It's complicated to explain. After a pause, Hyojin said, To put it simply, the power of the bloodline hidden in my genetic sequence was completely excavated when I achieved Kekii net, so this pair of small horns grew. Long horns on the forehead are the dominant characteristics of the Otsutsuki family. Otsutsuki Kagaya, Otsutsuki Yuki, Otsutsuki Hamura, and Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian, who became Jubi's Jinchuriki, all have this characteristic without exception. In contrast, the horns on Hyojin's forehead are considered small. This is not to say that his strength is not as good as other Otsutsuki, but his way of obtaining power is the orthodox chakra-nature fusion, without the help of external forces such as chakra fruit, Jubi, and so on, and does not rely much on the bloodline, so his dominant characteristics are not as obvious as Madara and Uchiha Obsidian in the state of Jubi's Jinchuriki. Except for the 2 small horns protruding from his forehead, his appearance, skin color, and so on are not too obvious changes. So cute! Kuroto touched the small horns on Hyojin's head and giggled. Looking at Kuroto's bright eyes, Hyojin was speechless. I'm not a little pet, don't stare at me like that. Kuroto suddenly thought of something and asked, I heard that the Sage of Six Paths also has 2 small horns on his head. Is this a characteristic of the sage? Hyojin replied casually, almost, but there are exceptions. Horns on the forehead indicate that the Otsutsuki bloodline in the body is very strong, and this kind of people are almost at the Six Paths level. For Otsutsuki samurai, only after activating the Tenseigan chakra mode, will a horn grow on the forehead. Under normal circumstances, there is no horn on the forehead. So it makes sense that long horns are a characteristic of the sage. However, there are exceptions to everything. The Cloud Brothers' Golden Horn and Silver Horn, who killed the second-generation Naruto, had horns on their foreheads, but they did not have the strength of the Six Paths level. At this time, Kuroto touched Hyojin's forehead again. I heard that you have another eye on your forehead, why is it gone? Ha! With a chuckle, Hyojin opened the Eye of the Moon between his eyebrows. Suddenly, a vertical slit appeared between his eyebrows, and the scarlet Eye of the Moon appeared in front of Sui's eyes. It was covered with magatama and was glowing with a strange light. Ah! Kuroto was startled and quickly retracted her hand. Hyojin said gently, Don't be afraid, it won't hurt you. Kuroto avoided the sight of the Eye of the Moon. Although she knew that the Eye of the Moon between Hyojin's eyebrows would not hurt her, for some reason, when facing the Eye of the Moon, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. When Hyojin saw this, he immediately closed the Eye of the Moon. After a while, Kuroto calmed down and whispered, Kuroto, I can't believe you actually became a sage. I also heard that you died once before. Hyojin smiled and said, That's all in the plan. Kuroto looked at Hyojin and said, Kuroto, are you not telling me anything because I'm a burden? Of course not. Touching Kuroto's head, Hyojin comforted her. My plan is too dangerous and crazy, so I have to hide it from everyone until it succeeds. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Then what do you want to tell me now? Kuroto's eyes were full of anticipation. Hyojin smiled knowingly, took a deep breath and said solemnly, Yui, marry me. Kuroto jumped up happily and hugged Hyojin. She said excitedly, Kuroto, our child will also grow horns and become a sage. Hyojin was stunned for a moment. Well, that's hard to say. After reaching the realm of Kekkei Net, Suijin's control over chakra has reached the point where he can control it at will, whether or not to gift chakra to his descendants, and how much chakra is gifted to him can be controlled. When he thought of the tragedy of the rebellion of Otsutsuki Yuki and Hamura brothers, Kuroto had some doubts in his heart. Although from the standpoint of the shinobi world, Kuroto supports the rebellion of the two brothers, because without Otsutsuki Yuki and Hamura's rebellion, the current shinobi world would be in an unimaginable state. It's even possible that Otsutsuki Kagaya would have drained the natural energy of the shinobi world, turning it into a dead planet floating in the universe. But from the standpoint of parents, the taste of being betrayed by their children is not a good feeling. Thinking of this, Hyojin secretly made up his mind. I can't repeat the mistakes of Otsutsuki Kagaya and his mother, raising ingrates. The education of Otsutsuki Kagaya and his mother is a failure. Not to mention the sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya, the sage of the Six Paths Yuki's education of his children is also a mess. The millennium-long struggle in the shinobi world is the battle between his eldest son, Indra, and his second son, Azura, which turned the shinobi world upside down. There was no need to mention Otsutsuki Hamura. The main family was directly destroyed, and then the last descendant, Otsutsuki Tonari, was the only one left. They were almost completely wiped out. All these lessons made Hyojin pay more attention to the education of his children. After formally proposing to Yui, Hyojin moved to the Hyuga mansion as the head of the Hyuga clan. Naturally, he doesn't need to worry about the wedding preparations himself. Almost everyone in the clan and village is busy preparing for his wedding, because he is not only the head of the clan but also the head of the village. And with his current identity as a sage, his wedding is not even a matter of Mai's family. Other shinobi villages, and even the daimyo of various countries, without waiting for an official invitation from Mai, one by one, they rushed to send their congratulatory gift. And in this festive and busy atmosphere, Hyojin quietly came to my hospital. The Fourth Shinobi War has just ended, many of the wounded have not recovered, and many people are disabled because of injuries, including Guy, who is very close to Hyojin. Under the treatment of Naruto's Yang Force, although Guy's life was saved, the outbreak of the Hashiman Tonku formation caused many injuries to his body that cannot be healed by current medical ninjutsu, so Tsunade personally diagnosed and confirmed that Guy has lost the qualification to continue to be a ninja. Here is the first update. Please guarantee the monthly ticket. Chapter 1402. Ha ha ha! Before entering the ward, Hyojin heard Guy's hearty laughter from far away in the hospital corridor. It seems that he is talking about something happy with his injured colleagues in the ward. This Guy, with a chuckle, Hyojin walked into the ward. Seeing Hyojin coming in, the Mai ninjas in the ward were taken aback and quickly got up and saluted. Lie down, this is the hospital, there is no need to salute me. After pressing his hands, Hyojin looked at Guy and said, Guy, I came to see you, how is your body? Guy, who was sitting in a wheelchair, smiled and said, I didn't expect to survive, thanks to Naruto. Hyojin opened the Tenseigan at this time and checked Guy's body. He found that Guy's bones, meridians, and ligaments at various joints have suffered serious injuries, which is indeed beyond the limit of the current medical ninjutsu. However, Guy's mental state is quite good. He is not too depressed, as if the injured and disabled person is not him. At this time, Tsunade, who learned that Hyojin came to the hospital, led a group of medical ninjas to Guy's ward. Seeing that Hyojin is examining Guy, Tsunade said, Guy's situation is very bad, I tried several treatment plans, but the effect is not very good. Guy didn't care much. I know very well what the price of opening the death gate is, I am very lucky to be alive. Hyojin nodded lightly. For an ordinary ninja, the gate of death is an absolute taboo. Opening it means certain death. But Guy almost dug out the potential of his body to the extreme when he opened the gate of death, so he is indeed very lucky to still be alive. Tsunade stared at Hyojin and asked, Kuroto, do you have a way? Of course. Kuroto smiled. For him who has already mastered all the changes in the nature of chakra, not to mention healing injuries, even resurrecting a person is not a difficult task. As he spoke, he pressed his hand on Guy's shoulder. At this time, Tsunade quickly signaled to the medical ninjas around her, asking everyone to carefully watch the process of Hyojin's treatment. She brought a group of medical ninjas here this time to learn the treatment methods of Hyojin. However, before anyone could figure out what was going on, Hyojin had already withdrawn his hand. Tsunade was puzzled. That's it? Without waiting for Hyojin to reply, Guy, who had been confirmed to be disabled, stood up from the wheelchair with a look of surprise. I feel that my body has completely recovered. No, it's even better than before. Hyojin smiled and said, Just now, I helped you treat the internal injuries that you accumulated during your training. Seeing that Guy looked like a new person, Tsunade clicked her tongue in wonder. As expected of an immortal. Feeling the expectant eyes of the other injured people in the ward, Hyojin turned to Tsunade and said, Gather all the injured people who can't be cured by medical ninjutsu. Tsunade's eyes lit up. Okay, I'll arrange it. Soon, the medical ninjas in the hospital were busy, gathering all the disabled people in an empty hall, and Hyojin didn't talk nonsense and began to treat them. Hyojin won't easily resurrect the dead people who have died in the war, because this will directly destroy the social structure. Once this starts, everyone will want to resurrect, and then wouldn't it be a mess? Even if Hyojin has more chakra, it's impossible to guarantee that everyone will live forever. But if it's just treating the disabled people in this war, it's a piece of cake. Hyojin himself is proficient in the human body structure, coupled with the assistance of the Tenseigan and the realm of Kekkei net. The disabled people in his hands are like misplaced building blocks. As long as he moves his hand a little, he can easily put them right. Is this the power of an immortal? With Kandame-sama here, is there any meaning for us medical ninjas to exist? Yes, we were busy before, but we can't even compare to Kandame-sama's hand. And watching one after another, the disabled people who couldn't be cured by medical ninjutsu were instantly healed by Hyojin's hands. A group of medical ninjas headed by Tsunade were both surprised and discouraged. Not to mention ordinary medical ninjas, even Tsunade's heart wavered for a moment or two. After healing all the disabled people in the hospital that can't be treated by medical ninjutsu, Hyojin didn't stay. His figure flashed, and he came to the death forest at the edge of the village. Shinichi, who has been waiting there for a long time, quickly greeted, "Boss." Hyojin nodded and followed Shinichi to his abandoned underground laboratory. Now he has to fulfill his promise and resurrect Kurumi Uchiha for Shinichi. In the underground laboratory, Kurumi Uchiha had a nervous look on her face, and her eyes drifted to Shinichi, who was behind Hyojin from time to time. Shinichi was not much better. He rubbed his hands nervously and asked Hyojin, "Boss, there should be no problem, right?" Hyojin glanced at Shinichi. "What do you think?" Shinichi smiled awkwardly. "Hee, there should be no problem if the boss takes action." Hyojin didn't talk nonsense. He directly pressed his hand on Kurumi Uchiha's earth body, opened the eye of the moon in between his eyebrows, and said in a low voice, "Outer path, natural reincarnation technique." Sizzle sizzle, accompanied by a burst of steam, Kurumi Uchiha's earth body quickly recovered, and the pale body that was full of cracks gradually became whole and healthy. Looking at her red palms, Kurumi Uchiha's eyes shed tears. I'm alive." Listening to Kurumi Uchiha's beating heart again, looking at Kurumi Uchiha's face full of life, Shinichi was excited and shocked. This is the power of a god. Phew, exhaling lightly, Hyojin closed the eye of the moon, and then ordered Shinichi and Kurumi, "Remember, don't spill the beans." Shinichi quickly said, "I understand." Tell the outside world that Kurumi didn't die at that time, she was just seriously injured and went into hibernation. Because I wanted to infiltrate the Akatsuki organization, she faked her death and went into seclusion. Okay. Hyojin nodded. Uchiha Kurumi's situation is a bit special. Kuroto has made a promise to Uchiha Kurumi a long time ago, that's why Kuroto decided to take action. But Uchiha Kurumi's situation is quite special. Kuroto made a promise to Uchiha Kurumi a long time ago, so he decided to take action. After fulfilling his promise to Shinichi, Hyojin's figure flashed, and he arrived at the Uchiha clan's land. He found Itachi in the Patriarch's mansion, and Hyojin looked at Itachi's eye that was blind, because he used the forbidden technique Izanami. Sasuke quickly asked, "Sir, do you have a way to restore Brother's Manjikyu Sharingan?" Hyojin smiled, and then pressed his hand on Itachi's blind eye. Itachi was stunned, and the scarlet Manjikyu pattern appeared in his blind eye again. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1403. In the deep universe, on the surface of a barren planet, there stood a withered divine tree. Apart from the gradually decaying divine tree, there was no longer any greenery on the planet. There were no cities, no rivers, and no signs of life. As far as the eye could see, there was only a desolate desert. At this moment, a muscular figure floated to the top of the divine tree and bowed to a mysterious person dressed in gorgeous clothes who was sitting leisurely at the top of the divine tree. "Master Momoshi, I've finished searching this star map." "Humph." The mysterious man named Momoshi snorted with a hint of impatience on his face. There is no doubt that these two people who can travel in the universe are not ordinary people, but the Otsutsuki family's high-ranking warrior Momoshiki Otsutsuki and low-ranking warrior Kinshiki Otsutsuki. And the purpose of their search was to find traces of Otsutsuki Kagaya. Swallowing a few highly concentrated chakra pill, Momoshiki Otsutsuki said unhappily, "Draining all the energy of this planet only to refine such a small amount of chakra pill, what a waste of time." Okamushi listened quietly and didn't make a sound. Things like destroying the entire planet's ecosystem and refining all the life and energy on the planet into chakra pill were things they had done countless times along the way. It was as simple as eating and drinking. It was not worth their attention. After replenishing the energy consumed for crossing the starry sky, Momoshiki waved his hand. "Let's go to the next star map." Swish, as soon as Momoshiki Otsutsuki's voice fell, a colorful rainbow appeared in the distant universe. Almost instantly, Momoshiki Otsutsuki and Kinshiki Otsutsuki's eyes were attracted by the gorgeous rainbow. Their expressions gradually became solemn, and a trace of disbelief appeared on their arrogant faces. Shinobi World. As the black pixel-like cubes folded and opened, a spatial door suddenly appeared. Then, a figure carrying a magic fishing rod walked out of the portal with a mocking look on his face. He looked around and laughed frivolously. "Is this the planet Hui Yi is hiding on? Heh, thanks to that rainbow, it saved me a lot of time." There was no doubt that the figure who could activate the Yomi Hirasaka was also an Otsutsuki, and he was a member of the Otsutsuki family, Otsutsuki Urashiki. His mission was the same as Momoshiki Otsutsuki and Kinshiki Otsutsuki, which was to find Otsutsuki Kagaya. However, Kuroto's speed is faster, and he has already found the vicinity of the Shinobi World, so after discovering the rainbow projected into the universe, he directly followed the direction of the rainbow and found the Shinobi World ahead of time. After observing the surroundings, Okatsuki Urashiki clicked his tongue in wonder. "TSK, what a vibrant planet! No wonder Kagaya destroyed all the star chart records." After smiling, Okatsuki decided to secretly investigate this planet first. Judging from the seven-colored rainbow that was thrown into the universe earlier, there was a bloodline genesis net on this planet that was on par with him. Therefore, he did not treat this place as an ordinary planet that he could trample on at will. "My village, Uchiha Clan Land." Feeling the light in his eyes, Itachi quickly saluted Hyojin. "Sorry for the trouble." Sasuke on the side was also happy. "Thank you, sir." Hyojin shook his head. "You don't have to be polite with me." After entering the lobby, after the two sides were seated, Hyojin simply asked about the situation of the Uchiha clan after the war. Itachi did not hide anything. Because of the Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian, there is indeed some emotional instability in the clan, and the other ninjas in the village seem to have some estrangement with us. Sasuke said indignantly. "Our Uchiha clan also fought hard." Hyojin said calmly. "I will arrange for someone to investigate your Uchiha clan." Without waiting for Itachi to answer, Sasuke was shocked and said, "Don't you trust us?" Hyojin did not explain anything and said directly, "Itachi, after the investigation is completed, I will arrange for you to join the advisory elder group and prepare for the next step of replacing me as the 6th generation." After the 4th Shinobi War was quelled by Hyuga Hyuga as a sage, the advisory group of elders led by Sandaime consciously relinquished the power of Konoha. However, Hyojin was not interested in managing the daily affairs of the village, so he had to speed up the training of Itachi. When the impatient Sasuke heard that Hyojin wanted to arrange for his brother to become the 6th generation of the village, he was surprised and surprised. Is this true? Sir, do you really allow our Uchiha clan to be Naruto? Hyojin smiled and nodded. Itachi was also a little surprised. Senpai, is it not good for me to join the advisory elder group at this time? You don't have to worry too much about this. After a pause, Hyojin continued. In addition, I don't feel at ease leaving the disappearance of Nagato and Orochimaru to others, so you will be responsible for the investigation. With the further summary of the information in the past 2 days, Hyojin felt that the matter was not as simple as it seemed. Nagato disappeared without a trace after that night. Even the chakra mark that Tsunade secretly left on Nagato's body when she healed Nagato's injuries inexplicably disappeared. As for Orochimaru, there is no need to mention him. Whether it is the Sound Village or the other bases, there is no trace of him, and pharmacists Do, Kimimaro, Yugo, and Yamato who accompanied him are also missing, their whereabouts unknown. In the current shinobi world, the strongest person who can quietly deal with Nagato, Orochimaru, pharmacists Do, Kimimaro, Yugo, and Yamato, in Hyojin's opinion, is Otsutsuki Kagaya, who was sealed by him. Among the others, Naruto and Sasuke are slightly immature. Otsutsuki Samurai's destructive power is enough, but he can't do it silently. Xiang Lin and Ziyuan, these 2 young gods, one mastered spacetime ninjutsu, and the other mastered sealing jutsu, which is theoretically possible, but it is only a theory. Their shortcomings are the same as Naruto and Sasuke. They are also slightly immature. After all, they are only 13 or 14 years old. When Hyojin was at this age, he was just a cannon fodder in the 3rd Shinobi War. And after excluding these incomplete 6th-path powerhouses or those close to the 6th-path level, Hyojin couldn't find any suitable suspects in the shinobi world. It can't be that there are other Otsutsuki hidden in the shinobi world, right? Hyojin chuckled. Realizing the seriousness of the problem, Itachi quickly nodded and said, "Please rest assured, I will do my best to investigate this matter." Sasuke was eager to try. "Sama, please let me join the investigation." Because Sasuke didn't consume the Yin power mark in his hand during the battle to seal Otsutsuki Kagaya, so at this time, Sasuke is still nourished by the Yin power that was given to him by the Sage of the 6 Paths, and his pupil power is still increasing. Hyojin shook his head. "I have other arrangements for you. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Top. Chapter 1404. After leaving the Uchiha territory, Hyojin wandered around the village, and finally stopped at a training field. In the field, a group of fellow students surrounded and attacked Naruto, while Naruto dealt with them methodically. Regardless of whether it was Xiaoli's physical skills, Shikamaru's secret shadow skill, Jina's parasitic worm, or Zhuajing's pseudo-super beast painting, he dealt with them with ease. Even without using his full strength, he was not at a disadvantage against a group of people. Hyojin smiled. "Looks like he's grown a lot in this battle." Soon, the people fighting in the field stopped. I'm done. It's not interesting at all. Naruto is too crazy." "That's right. He's faster than Xiaoli, and he's stronger than Ding Ci. How are we supposed to fight against him?" The group of fellow students complained endlessly. Even though Naruto did not use his full strength, he was still at the incomplete Samsara level, which was gifted by the Samsara deity. Even if they were the elites of the same generation, they had no chance of winning against Naruto. Even Jinao, who was usually quiet, said, "This kind of fight is meaningless. My parasitic worm doesn't even dare to get close to Naruto." "Ha, is that so?" Although Naruto scratched his head, his face was full of pride. Even though he did not become a hero who saved the world, Just the fact that he was Hyojin's disciple and had received a gift from the Samsara deity was enough to make Naruto the center of attention. At this time, Hinata ran to the field with a clean towel and timidly handed it to Naruto. Naruto took the towel casually. "Thank you, Hinata." "Okay." Hinata instantly blushed and lowered his head shyly. On the sidelines, Red, who was watching from the tree, shook her head. "Naruto is different from us. This kind of training is useless to him." Asma sighed. "Yeah." This feeling of being surpassed by a 13 or 14-year-old junior and being ruthlessly left behind, to the point where they could not even see their backs, was really not a good feeling. Mute said, "I remember that Naruto still has 2 truth-seeking jade left. According to Jing, Naruto should be an immortal now, right?" Kakashi nodded. "Yes, Naruto has indeed stepped into that realm. Others might not know, but Kakashi knew that Naruto had really fought with the ancestor of chakra, Otsutsuki Kagaya, and the battle was not completely one-sided." At this time, Red noticed that Hyojin was also on the sidelines. "Hey, isn't that Mirror?" They immediately jumped down from the tree and came in front of Hyojin. Hyojin smiled. "You're all here," Asma said angrily. "Mirror, you've been hiding it from us for too long." Mute said, "That's nothing, I was even fooled by him." Red looked at Hyojin and wanted to say something but stopped. "I'm sorry for hiding the matter of Amatsukami from everyone." Hyojin knew that Asma and the others were just casually complaining, so he smiled. Kakashi looked at Naruto in the field and then asked Hyojin, "Mirror, I can no longer guide Naruto. What are you going to do with him next?" Hyojin said, "Don't worry, I have already made arrangements for Naruto." They chatted for a while and teased Hyojin, who was about to get married, and then went about their own business. After all, the war had just ended, and there were still many things that needed to be handled by the Jonin. Just as Hyojin was about to leave, Red, who had just left, turned back and pulled Hyojin to an empty grove. She said eagerly, "Mirror, I want to ask about someone." Seeing that Red wanted to say something but stopped, Hyojin guessed something, so he said, "Is it Winchim? You all know?" Red was taken aback and immediately nodded. "Yes, it's him, the leader of Amatsukami. You must know him. Where is he now?" Hyojin touched his nose with a strange expression. Why are you looking for him?" Red said in a deep voice. "I have something to say to him." Seeing Red's serious and determined expression, Hyojin couldn't help but think of the relevant part of Amatsukami's investigation report about Winchim. In it, Red obviously hid the fact that Winchim had a Byakugan from the village. "She can't really like me, no, like Winchim, right?" Kuroto groaned inwardly. He was going to get married, and the wind-release doppelganger had already been integrated into his body and became a part of his body. The code name Winchim had also been inherited by Gaara. It could be said that the previous Winchim no longer existed. Thinking of this, Hyojin had an idea and said, "Winchim mentioned it to me." Red was stunned for a moment, then quickly asked, "What did he say?" Hyojin replied, "He didn't say anything else. He just said that he is a good ninja, but his physical skills are a little bad and he is a little stupid." Red's face suddenly darkened and she gritted her teeth. "Bastard." Observing Red's expression, Hyojin continued to talk nonsense. "If you ask me about him because he owes me money, I'm afraid I can't pay it back." Red frowned. "What happened to him?" "He died of illness." After a pause, Hyojin sighed. "It's a blood disease that can't be cured." Leaving Red, who was a little lost, behind, Hyojin ran away. On the way, Hyojin, who was reminded by Red, secretly thought, "It seems that I have to remind Xianglin and Ailer." Although there were many members in Amatsukami, Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi did not know that Hyojin was preparing for the blood succession fusion ritual. The only ones who knew the truth were Xianglin and Ailer, who lived in the air fortress for a long time. Even Zyuan, Haku, Ningxi, and Naruto only knew that Hyojin was carrying out the blood succession fusion ritual. When Hyojin took out the clone on the altar, they had already been sent by Hyojin to the chakra transportation area far away from the altar. They did not know the details of the altar. So as long as Xiang Lin and Ailer kept their mouths shut, no one would know the secret of the clone. Other than Winchim, the identities of River Master, Xidagarba, and Fire Demon also needed to be dealt with. Especially the identity of Fire Demon Uchiha Flames. He had to bury it completely. This was one of his dark histories. Although he could do anything to break through the blood succession net, let alone controlling a clone, he was now an immortal. If this was exposed, he would have no place to hide his face. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1405. Crossing the portal, Hyojin went directly from my village to the sky fortress floating on the sea. After stepping into the expanded brand-new power room, Hyojin's eyes were quickly attracted by the incomparably bright giant Tenseigan in the center. Because of the previous decomposition of the giant Tenseigan on the moon, Hyojin obtained thousands of Byakugan. So when he used all these Byakugan as nourishment and transported them to his giant Tenseigan immediately underwent earth-shaking changes. The most intuitive change is the change in volume. This giant Tenseigan has changed from only 2 or 3 meters in diameter to more than 20 meters in diameter now. In terms of volume alone, it has even surpassed the previous giant Tenseigan on the moon. Therefore, Hyojin had to rebuild the Sky Fortress again. After this reconstruction, the power room where the giant Tenseigan is located has become the only core of the Sky Fortress, and even Hyojin's laboratory has been moved to the edge. Is the fusion still in progress? After observing for a while, Hyojin whispered. There is no doubt that because the number of Byakugan he sent this time is too much, almost 100 times the original number of Byakugan in his giant Tenseigan, so a few days is not enough to completely absorb it. In other words, with the passage of time, the level and volume of this giant Tenseigan chakra will further increase. After carefully feeling it with his own Tenseigan, Hyojin's tone was firm. When the complete fusion is completed, this giant Tenseigan itself will probably be equivalent to a complete 6-path level. Tenseigan chakra is different from other chakra. It itself has the ability to simulate the fusion of yin and yang, 5 elements and 7 chakra. This is also the reason why the truth-seeking ball can be condensed in the Tenseigan chakra mode. Therefore, as long as the concentration of the Tenseigan chakra reaches a certain level and breaks through a certain limit, there is no need to supplement all the attributes to obtain the complete strength of a 6-path realm. A normal person would not be able to refine chakra endlessly and increase the concentration of chakra. If they did that, they would die of exhaustion before breaking through to the 6th realm. But the giant Tenseigan that is purely made up of Byakugan doesn't have this problem, so as long as the number of Byakugan is enough, quantitative change can cause qualitative change. After leaving the engine room in satisfaction, Hyojin summoned Xiang Lin, Ziyuan, Aielo, and Bai who were left in the Sky Fortress. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin ordered, Ailer, Haku, the 2 of you will continue to guard the Sky Fortress from now on. You will be responsible for the defense and care of the Sky Fortress. Yes. Dressed in God's organization attire, Gaara and Haku responded in unison. Hyojin then looked at Xiang Lin and Ziyuan and ordered, the 2 of you come back to Mai with me. Ziyuan was elated. We can finally go back to the village. Xiang Lin glanced at Ziyuan. Do you need to be so happy? Isn't the Sky Fortress good? You don't understand. Ziyuan shook her finger mysteriously, then said, when we return to the village, I will take you to the streets, and you will know why I am so happy, hee hee. Hyojin knocked on Ziyuan's head. You only know how to eat and drink all day, sooner or later you will grow into a big fat man. Ziyuan covered her head while winking at Xiang Lin. Xiang Li was immediately aroused by Ziyuan. Not only her, but even Ailuo, who was beside her, secretly swallowed his saliva. Then, Xiang Lin asked Hyojin, "Sun-sama, is the food and snacks of my really as delicious as Ziyuan said?" Hyojin nodded. "It's okay. Konoha's geographical location is unique, and it is the best commercial development among the 5 great shinobi villages. Coupled with the identity of the sage of Hyuga Hyuga, there is an endless stream of merchants coming to open shops, and the streets are filled with shops being renovated everywhere." Seeing the pitiful look on Gaara's face, Xiang Lin asked again, "Sun-sama, after I go to Mai, can you give Haku and Gaara some delicious snacks from time to time?" "Of course." After a smile, Suijin said, "Xiang Li, Erida, come with me for a moment." "Yes." Xiang Lin and Gaara hurriedly followed Hyojin. Arriving at a lounge, Hyojin ordered Xiang Lin and Gaara to stand obediently, then directly stretched out his hands and took out 2 memory orbs from their bodies. Immediately afterward, Hyojin browsed through the memory orbs of the 2 while sealing the contents of their memories related to experiments and clones. This kind of detailed and trivial memory seal is very difficult for Hyojin to do in the past. Not to mention him, even Itachi and Jishuei, who are proficient in genjutsu, would find it difficult to seal so many trivial memories without causing confusion in the sealed person's memory. But now Hyojin is different. Even if he is not proficient in genjutsu, this kind of operation is very easy for him. Moreover, with the assistance of the memory orbs, he can even accurately seal each frame of memory to minimize the impact on the sealed person and achieve the best sealing effect. After a long time, Hyojin finally completed the memory seal on Xiang Lin and Gaara. He did not rudely distort Xiang Lin and Gaara's memory, so Xiang Lin and Gaara's cognition of the past will not be affected, and they will not notice any inconsistencies because of this. They only forgot a small amount of memory related to Hyojin's clone and blurred some details of the ritual. "Okay, you can go first." After sending Xiang Lin and Gaara away, Hyojin cleaned up the laboratory again and sealed the main laboratory related to the Kekii fusion ritual. With his current strength and attainments in sealing techniques, even if it's other Kekii net, it will take a lot of time to unlock these seals, and with the giant Tenseigan guarding this place, no one can break into this place without him knowing. And in the process of cleaning up the laboratory, he couldn't help but remind himself. Now, he can seal someone's memory at will, coupled with his near-eternal life. If he doesn't remind himself from time to time, he is likely to gradually become like Otsutsuki Kagaya, losing his humanity and becoming a cold chakra monster. I am the one controlling the power, not the other way around. After secretly sighing, Hyojin slowly walked out of the laboratory. With his success in breaking through the Kekii net, he temporarily did not need to use the laboratory at the Sky Fortress. During this time, in addition to preparing for the wedding, the most important thing for him is to understand the Kekii net in depth and completely control the power of the Kekii net. As for how to train the shinobi world, he can put that aside. After all, he now has endless time. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1406. Early the next morning, Hyojin and a group of advisory elders of the village summoned his own shadow guards in Naruto's office. I have made a recommendation to the advisory elder group and received unanimous approval. From now on, you are the official jonin of the village. As Hyojin said, he handed the brand new ninja certificates to Red Bean, Gale, and Kian, who were lined up in front of the desk. After the 3 of them stepped forward and received the new ninja certificates one by one, their faces were filled with joy. Although the title of Tokubetsu Jonin also includes the word Jonin, but compared with the real Jonin, there is a big gap in terms of authority and salary. Red Bean, Gale, and Kian are all Tokubetsu Jonin. Now that they have been promoted to official Jonin by Hyojin, they are naturally very happy. Hyojin smiled and said, "You guys have been in the Shadow Guards for some years, so I decided to transfer you to the position of guiding Tokubetsu Jonin to familiarize yourself with the command position." The three of them didn't have any resistance after hearing this. First, with Hyojin's current strength as a sage, they can no longer play any role as guards. Or, since the establishment of the Shadow Guards by Hyojin, they have not seriously performed the duties of the Shadow Guards, and almost all of their time is spent protecting Hyojin. Second, the position of guiding Tokubetsu Jonin that Hyojin arranged for them is a very important position, such as Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, and Mute. These elite Tokubetsu Jonin, or core figures, all serve as guiding Tokubetsu Jonin. It can be said that guiding Tokubetsu Jonin is a compulsory course to become an elite Tokubetsu Jonin and a commander. Suddenly, Red Bean, who was silent, said, "Go Dame, I don't want to be a guiding Tokubetsu Jonin." Hyojin asked, "Then what do you want to do?" Red Bean said in a deep voice, "I want to join the investigation team of Orochimaru." "After so many years, you still haven't let it go?" Hyojin was a little speechless. He knows that Orochimaru has always been a knot in Red Bean's heart. Red Bean should have naturally entered the core circle of the village with Kakashi, Asuma, and Mute. Because of Orochimaru's defection, her status in the village as Orochimaru's disciple has plummeted, but after so many years have passed, he didn't expect Red Bean to still care so much. Red Bean shook her head. "I'm just not interested in guiding Jonin." Kuroto said, "It's up to you, but this matter is a bit strange. There may be unexpected dangers during the investigation. You'd better be mentally prepared." Hyojin nodded. "Well, then you go and report to Itachi Uchiha later. He is fully responsible for the investigation." After Red Bean, Hiruzen, and Suyin left, Jiraiya, sitting on the sofa, asked Hyojin, "Kuroto, why did you suddenly disband the Shadow Guards?" After Anko, Gale, and Shien left, Jiraiya, who was sitting on the sofa, asked, "Kuroto, why did you suddenly disband the Shadow Guard?" Although Hyojin is now the strongest in the shinobi world, there is no need to disband the Shadow Guards. After all, it is customary for Naruto to be equipped with the Shadow Guards. Even if he doesn't use them, he can use them as a direct team. Although Kuroto is now the strongest in the shinobi world, there is no need for him to disband the Shadow Guards. After all, it is customary for Hokage to have Shadow Guards. Even if he doesn't use them, he can still use them as a direct subordinate team. Hyojin smiled and said, "Who said I want to disband the Shadow Guards? I just changed the members of the Shadow Guards." 3 generations, Naruto hurriedly asked. "Are you going to form a new Shadow Guards?" Hyojin nodded and then shouted to the door, "Come in!" Knock knock. After politely knocking on the door, Otsutsuki Samurai, Naruto, and Sasuke filed in and walked into Naruto's office under the gaze of a group of consulting elders. Tsunade looked surprised. The 3 of them are your new Shadow Guards?" The other consulting elders also had different expressions. The strength of Otsutsuki Samurai, who was incorporated by Hyojin, is well known to the consulting elders. Now that Otsutsuki Samurai has the Tenseigan, there is no need to mention his strength. Naruto and Sasuke, who have received the gift of Sage of Six Paths, not only have the mark of Yang power and Yin power in their bodies, one also has the Truth-Seeking Ball, and the other has the Magatama Reincarnation Knife. Although these 3 people are young, without exception, they are strong people who have 1 foot in the Six Paths realm. They are the strongest people in the village besides Hyojin, and they are the sage's reserve. Hyojin smiled. "Of course not." When the consulting elders heard this, they immediately breathed a sigh of relief. If Hyojin accepted all 3 of them into the Shadow Guards, then all the high-end combat power of Mai would be concentrated in this Shadow Guards. At this time, Hyojin activated Yomi Biraban and opened a space door, saying leisurely, How can only 3 people be enough? As soon as Hyojin's voice fell, 2 figures stepped through the space door and came into the office. Young God, Otsutsuki Samurai, Naruto and Sasuke were all stunned. There is no doubt that the people who came to Naruto's office through the space door are not outsiders, but Xianglin and Zyuan dressed in the Young God attire of Amatsukami. Otsutsuki Samurai, Naruto, and Sasuke have all dealt with them. Although they don't know their real identity and appearance, they can recognize them at a glance based on Chakra's aura and attire. Young God? The group of consulting elders in the office all revealed puzzled expressions. They were no strangers to the members of Amatsukami. They had more or less dealt with Master, Fongling, Balrog, Xidagarba, and so on. But they had never heard of the title, Young God. Soon, Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at each other, their faces full of shock. Because just by looking at the fluctuations of chakra, they were experienced enough to judge that the 2 young gods of Amatsukami were very powerful. Even compared to the 3 favored sons of God, Otsutsuki Samurai, Naruto and Sasuke, the descendants of immortals, they were not inferior. Hyojin waved his hand and ordered, "Take off your masks." Xianglin and Zyuan immediately obeyed Hyojin's instructions and took off the Young God masks on their faces, revealing their true faces. Naruto's eyes widened and he pointed at Zyuan. "Zyuan, it's you. You're actually a Young God." Zyuan raised her eyebrows proudly. Hee. Sasuke stared straight into Xianglin's eyes. Reincarnation eyes. Otsutsuki Samurai also seriously looked at Xianglin and Zyuan, who had taken off their mask, because it was these 2 young gods who trapped him in the Sanyu River of the Styx last time. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you all. Chapter 1407. In fact, Otsutsuki Tonari knew very well that the last time they fought, he was defeated by the 2 young gods. This was not only because he was banished by the young god to the Sanyu River of the Styx River and was in a dilemma, but also because he had the blessing of the giant Tenseigan when fighting, while the 2 young gods opposite him were in a very poor state. In this situation where he had the upper hand, he was banished by the opponent's space-time ninjutsu. Even if he had the upper hand in the confrontation on the other side of the Sanroute River, in terms of the overall situation, he lost completely. And with the close perception, Naruto and Sasuke also had a more solemn look in their eyes, and their faces surged with a bit of fighting spirit. There is no doubt that in terms of the quality of chakra, Zyuan, as a complete Miko, and Xianglin, who has completely controlled the Rinnegan, are not much worse than Naruto and Sasuke. After completely absorbing the demon Morio and obtaining the complete power of the Miko, Zyuan, the strongest Miko in the land of demons for hundreds of years, was close to the 6th level. And Xianglin not only obtained the inheritance of the Uzumaki clan from the impure earth form of the Uzumaki patriarch, but also successfully transplanted the Hashirama cells and completely controlled the Rinnegan that Hyojin had fused. In terms of strength, it is close to the peak of Nagato at that time. She is the kind of person who, as long as she continues to practice hard and continue to refine the yin and yang fusion of the power of the universe, she will have the opportunity to enter the 6th level with her own ability in her lifetime. So when they found that Xianglin and Zyuan were not much worse than themselves, Naruto and Sasuke, as the same age, naturally had the fighting spirit and wanted to compete with them. The elders on the side had different expressions on their faces at the moment. Zyuan was no stranger to them, but they never thought that the mediocre little girl in the ninja school would not only be a member of Amatsukami, but also possess the terrifying chakra that made their hearts palpitate. Next to Zyuan was Xianglin, who had the Rinnegan eyes and the iconic red hair of the Whirlpool family. Zhuan Xiaochun couldn't help but ask, "Jing, how could she have the Rinnegan eyes?" Is it the pair of Uchiha Madara? Hyojin smiled. Who said that there is only one pair of Rinnegan in the shinobi world? Madara Uchiha's Rinnegan were still on the body of Madara Uchiha and were kept strictly by the village, so Hyojin did not need to explain anything. 3 generations was shocked. So you're saying that your Amatsukami already has Rinnegan? Tsunade looked at Xiang Lin up and down and then asked, is she a member of the Whirlpool family like Nagato? Naruto was stunned when he heard the words, and then looked at Xiang Lin. Hey, is your surname Uzumaki? No wonder you have the same red hair as your mother. Sasuke lifted his hair and revealed his Magatama Rinnegan. Young God, let me reintroduce myself. I'm Uchiha Sasuke. Xiang Lin glanced at Sasuke's Magatama Rinnegan. Xiang Lin. Xiang Lin. Sasuke muttered Xiang Lin's name softly and immediately became eager to try. Xiang Lin, I am now officially issuing a challenge to you. I want to prove that my Rinnegan is stronger than yours. Xiang Lin directly turned his head and left Sasuke to the side. Looking at the group of geniuses gathered in Naruto's office, Kakashi couldn't help but ask Hyojin, Kuroto, do you really want to recruit all of them into your shadow guard? Yes. Hyojin nodded gently. Kakashi was puzzled. Is there a need for that? Jiraiya and Tsunade also echoed. Yes, you are now the most powerful ninja in the shinobi world. There is no need to form such a powerful shadow guard. Naruto, Sasuke, Zyuan, Xiang Lin, and Otsutsuki Samurai are all reserve immortals who are one step away from becoming a real six-path immortal. With them together, even if they encounter a real six-path immortal, they won't be afraid. It is undoubtedly a waste to use such a terrifying force to protect Hyojin, who is the strongest in the shinobi world. Hyojin smiled and said, although they are strong, they are still too young. I want to incorporate them into the Shadow Guard to further train them. Kakashi thought for a moment and said, yes, except for you, there is no one in the shinobi world who can guide them. The 3 generations and Zhuan Shao Chun looked at each other and then sighed. They obviously don't agree with Hyojin's decision to incorporate all these geniuses into the Shadow Guard, but the current advisory group of elders can't restrict Hyojin at all. What's more, among these 5 people, Xiang Lin, Zyuan, and Sasuke are members of Amatsukami and belong to Hyojin's personal subordinate. Otsutsuki Samurai was personally recruited by Hyojin, and Naruto is Hyojin's disciple. No matter how Hyojin wants to arrange them, the village doesn't even have the qualification to say anything, so they can only choose to shut up. At this time, Jiraiya asked, Kuroto, what do you think about the disappearance of Orochimaru and Nagato? Hyojin asked casually, what is the analysis of the intelligence team? Jiraiya replied, from the traces left at the scene, the intelligence team suspects that they were attacked by an enemy who mastered some kind of space-time ninjutsu. Hyojin put away his smile. I have been to the scene. Maybe because it was too long, I did not find any traces of space-time ninjutsu, and according to the information you provided, Nagato's eyes are suspected to have the ability to interfere with space-time ninjutsu, so ordinary space-time ninjutsu would be very difficult to attack Nagato. Not to mention Orochimaru, Yakushi, and the others are not good people. Tsunade frowned slightly. Being attacked by an enemy who mastered space-time ninjutsu should be the most reasonable explanation at present. I am very clear about Nagato's situation. Although his injuries are not light, his physique is too strong. After I treated him, he quickly recovered. On the other hand, Orochimaru did not have any injuries on his body, so the weakening of his combat power is not serious. If the enemy did not use space-time ninjutsu, then this matter is very serious. If the possibility of space-time ninjutsu is excluded, then it means that there is a strong person in the ninja world who can easily deal with Nagato, Orochimaru, and Yakushi-do who are basically in good condition. And to be able to do this, the strength of this strong person has undoubtedly reached the level of a six-path immortal. After all, even the six-path obsidian couldn't fight Nagato, Orochimaru, and Yakushi-do so easily. Everything is possible, so we can't be careless. Hyojin is not sure whether the mysterious Otsutsuki is still hiding in the ninja world, but he knows that after the Fourth Shinobi War in the original spacetime, several Otsutsuki have crossed the universe and come to the ninja world, so the threat of Otsutsuki has not been eliminated. Here is the first update, asking for recommendation and monthly votes. Here is the first update, asking for recommendation and monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1408. Seeing Hyojin's solemn tone, the group of advisory elders also paid attention to this matter. Kakashi directly asked, Kurodo, is it possible that there are other mysterious immortals in the shinobi world? Hyojin shook his head and said, I'm not sure, so I reformed the Shadow Guards to deal with possible emergencies. In Hyojin's memory, there should be no other Otsutsuki in the shinobi world of the original spacetime, and there shouldn't be any hidden six-path immortals. But because of his existence, the shinobi world of the original spacetime has changed greatly. This is no longer the butterfly effect, it's simply the typhoon effect, so the memories in his mind can only be used as a reference and can't be relied on too much. Hearing that there may be a hidden six-path enemy in the shinobi world, not only were they not afraid, but they were also eager to fight. Jiraiya's face sank. If that's the case, then it's going to be troublesome. Whether it's Orochimaru or Nagato, both are people that Jiraiya is very concerned about. If the one who attacked them and caused them to disappear is really a six-path immortal, then Orochimaru and Nagato will be in danger. Not only that, but having such a powerful enemy hidden in the dark is also a huge threat to Mai and the shinobi world. Once Hyojin, as the strongest in the shinobi world, is defeated, then the entire shinobi world will immediately fall into a disaster similar to the Fourth Shinobi World War. Seeing the group of advisory elders are worried, Hyojin smiled and said lightly, Everyone, rest assured, as long as I am here, the shinobi world will still be the shinobi world. The group of advisory elders calmed down slightly when they heard Kurodo's words. Although Hyojin said it very casually, and didn't repeatedly guarantee, nor did he make any random oath, but when these words came out of his mouth, it inexplicably gives people a sense of peace of mind. Knock knock. At this time, there was another knock on the office door. Hyojin said, Come in. Soon, Richa walked in and reported, Naruto-sama, according to your orders, all the members of the Hyuga branch have gathered in the clan land. Hyojin smiled. You go first, I'll be there soon. Yes. Richa nodded excitedly, bowed deeply, and then left Naruto's office. Seeing Richa, who has always been calm, beaming with joy, Kakashi asked curiously, Kurodo, why are you summoning the Hyuga clansmen? Hyojin looked at the blue sky outside the window. I'm going to open the cage. Hyuga clan. The members of the branch family, which accounts for 99% of the population of the Hyuga clan, are all immersed in an unspeakable excitement at this moment. Although they tried to suppress it, the excitement and joy shining on their faces completely revealed the true emotions in their hearts. Finally, this day has come. I didn't expect that we could still get rid of the caged bird alive. Ho, that's great. The branch family members gathered in the main courtyard were whispering to each other. Some of them were excited, some of them were happy, and some of them were even crying tears of joy. But the rules that have bound the branch family for a long time have been engraved in their bones and become a habit. Even if they know that today's gathering is for the new patriarch Hyojin to open the caged bird for them one by one and release their souls bound by the caged bird curse, they still remained quiet and restrained themselves in the mansion. No matter how excited they were, no one made a loud noise. Ningxi and Hinata are also in the crowd. Looking at the familiar people with tears in their eyes and joy on their faces, Hinata whispered, "Ningtsi, Gidge." Ningtsi tilted his head slightly. "What's wrong?" Hinata said sincerely, "I'm sorry." On normal days, the members of the branch family will not show their disgust for the caged bird curse in front of Hinata, so Hinata doesn't feel much about it. But now, after seeing the reaction of the people, as a member of the main family, she knows how much the branch family hates and rejects the caged bird curse. Ningtsi shook his head. "This has nothing to do with you, you don't have to apologize. And Sensei also told me that although the caged bird has various drawbacks, the original intention of the main family to develop it is indeed to protect all the clansmen, and in these years, our branch family has to admit that because of the existence of the caged bird, very few people on the battlefield will target us for the sake of the Byakugan." Hinata said happily, "Now it's good, there is no difference between the main family and the branch family anymore." Ningtsi tentatively asked, "Hinata, do you really not care?" "Yes." Hinata nodded seriously and said, compared with Ningtsi, "Gidge, my talent is obviously not enough, but because of the main family, I get a lot of extra care. I think this is unfair." Ningtsi took back his gaze and said with emotion, "Yes, what we want has always been fairness." At this time, Hyojin led his shadow guards back to the main house. Patriarch. Seeing that Hyojin appeared, the courtyard finally became noisy. Everyone could no longer hold back their excitement, they all cheered for Hyojin. Looking at the crowd in front of him, Hyojin smiled and waved his hand. As a member of the Hyuga branch family, he can understand the feelings of these branch family members in front of him. Standing behind Hyojin, Naruto, Sasuke, Zyuan, Keiho, and Otsutsuki samurai were all confused. They didn't understand why these Hyuga clansmen in front of them were so excited. Hyojin glanced around at this time and found that several members of the main family, including Hayashi, didn't show up, only Hinata followed beside Ningtsi. It seems that they still can't let it go. After a chuckle, Hyojin's expression gradually became serious and loudly announced, "The old era is over." Immediately, the cheers in the field were like thunder. In the side courtyard, several members of the main family sat in a circle, looking at each other without saying a word. Suddenly, the cheers of the branch families in the courtyard rang out. The thunderous cheers shook them to the point that they were in a daze. Sigh. The only remaining old elder of the main family sighed faintly, his face full of unwillingness. Hyuga Takashi, who was elected as the new elder of the main family not long ago, said to the old elder of the main family, "You don't have to be too sad. Removing the caged bird, abolishing the main family, and the separation system may not be a bad thing for the Hyuga clan. After all, with the 5th generation, there is no need to worry about the safety of the Hyuga clan." Hayashi nodded and sighed. "I have never heard such cheers before. Maybe we really should be eliminated." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly vote. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1409. Hyuga Clan Courtyard. The excited members of the branch family quickly lined up in a long line, and one by one, they came in front of Hyojin full of expectations. Hyojin activated the Tenseigan and became serious. Wanting to break the cage bird is actually more troublesome than he imagined. Because it involves the giant Tenseigan, the level of the cage bird curse is far higher than most people think. This is also the reason why even after Hyojin obtained the Tenseigan, he couldn't completely remove the cage bird curse until he completed the ritual and advanced to Kekiai net. Moreover, the cage bird curse acts on the brain nerves and the soul body at the same time. Simply removing the curse on the body or the soul body will not be able to completely remove it. Whether it is the brain nerves or the soul body, they are extremely fragile. Therefore, even the current Hyojin can only remove the curse for one clansman at a time, because he needs to be fully focused, and even a little negligence may cause unpredictable and serious damage to the clansman. It didn't take long for more and more members of the branch family to be released from the cage bird and gain long-lost freedom. Looking at the sincere smiles of the clansmen, Hyojin also smiled. He did what he wanted to do, changing the Hyuga clan from the root, and no one bled because of it. He didn't use force to annihilate the Hyuga clan by force to promote the reform, but waited until the overall situation was settled before implementing the reform. This is because the cage bird has its advantages and disadvantages. While restraining the development of the Hyuga clan, it also protects the inheritance of the Hyuga clan, and prevents the old, weak, women, and children of the clan from becoming the target of other people's byakugan. Many things in the world are not black and white. The cage bird is even more so. It is a shackle, a cage, but isn't it also a kind of protection? During the Third Shinobi War, if Hyojin didn't often reveal the cage bird curse on his forehead, revealing his identity as a member of the Hyuga branch family, in order to dispel the other party's idea of snatching his byakugan, he wouldn't have survived until now. Just like Hyuga Aoki, as soon as he obtained power, he became complacent and started a massacre. Or perhaps they would be like the Danzo, who did whatever they wanted as long as they had power. They would use force at every turn, and they would even carry out sneak attacks, assassinations, and even massacring their own people. All of them would gradually be consumed by their own extreme and arrogant attitudes, causing them to be loathed by even their own family and friends. For the rational and pragmatic Hyojin, this was not what he wanted. A slap was usually the most threatening when it was raised. When it was really slapped down, only pain and hatred would be left. This was also the reason why Hyojin's actions had become gentler after he successfully leveled up to Bloodline Sequence Net. Firstly, it was his personality. As a researcher, he was used to restraining himself and keeping himself rational and objective at all times. Secondly, from a pragmatic point of view, the gentler he behaved, the more he would be able to promote various reforms without any resistance. If he was as cold and arrogant as Otsutsuki Kagaya, Nagato, and Uchiha Madara, showing contempt for ordinary people, it would arouse everyone's instinctive resistance. No one likes to live in the shadow of fear. This has nothing to do with strength or weakness, it's just human nature. If he really went to the step of Otsutsuki Kagaya, the current Hyojin could indeed suppress the entire shinobi world and eradicate all the opponents, but in this way, it would be equivalent to castrating the spirit of the entire shinobi world and carving the cage bird on the whole shinobi world. In this case, it would be better to directly hang everyone on a tree like Otsutsuki Kagaya. What Hyojin needs is a shinobi world that is full of vitality and can constantly provide him with ideas and inspiration, and support him in exploring the universe. He doesn't want to be a feudal emperor, and he doesn't want to be a numb god. What he wants is constant exploration, and exploration. Therefore, after obtaining all the authority of Naruto, he still did not intervene in the daily management of the village, but transferred a large amount of funds from the village to establish a large comprehensive laboratory near the village, and recruited various scientific researchers to conduct a comprehensive study on the body of Uchiha Madara and the pair of Rinnegan. After a long time, the long line of people in the courtyard disappeared, leaving only Ningtse at the end. Because he is a disciple of Hyojin, Ningtse deliberately lined up at the end of the line, becoming the only Hyuga clansman in the current shinobi world who still has the cage bird curse. Hyojin smiled, and then skillfully removed the cage bird curse on Ningtse's forehead. "Thank you, sensei." Ningtse bowed deeply to Hyojin. Hyojin said with a smile, "Spread your wings and fly high." Ningtse nodded heavily, then looked at Naruto, Sasuke, and the others standing behind Hyojin and said, "Sensei, I also want to join your shadow guard." When he was queuing up just now, he had already heard that Hyojin reorganized the shadow guard and recruited Naruto, Sasuke, Zyuan, Xiangyu, and Otsutsuki Samurai into the shadow guard. Hyojin shook his head gently and refused Ningxi. The reason why he reorganized the Shadow Guard this time and recruited Naruto, Sasuke, and the others into his own Shadow Guard is because he felt a trace of strangeness in the mysterious disappearance of Nagato and Orochimaru. And Naruto, Sasuke, Zyuan, Xiangyu, and Otsutsuki Samurai are all one step into the six-path realm, and with a little training, they can face a six-path powerhouse head-on. In contrast, Ningxi, Haku, and Gaara are slightly inferior in terms of level, and they have almost no ability to fight against a six-path powerhouse, so Hyojin didn't recruit them into the Shadow Guard. Because his Shadow Guard is really capable of fighting a six-path powerhouse head-on, if he recruited people with insufficient strength, it would be harming them. Ningxi said anxiously, "Sensei, I know I am not as good as them now, but I will definitely work hard." Hyojin patted Ningxi on the shoulder and explained, "I believe in your ability, but this time the situation is a bit special, you are not suitable to join the Shadow Guard at the moment." Ningxi was a little disappointed, and immediately asked, "Then how can I join the Shadow Guard?" Tenseigan. After a pause, Hyojin said, "When you have the Tenseigan, you can join the Shadow Guard." Tenseigan. Ningxi's eyes narrowed, and a strong fighting spirit ignited on his face. With the improvement of his realm, Hyojin understood that the Byakugan of the Otsutsuki clan can actually evolve into many kinds of pupil technique Kekkai Genkai. In addition to the Tenseigan, there are also Sharingan and Rinnegan. But contrary to the current understanding of all the Hyuga people, the Tenseigan is not the easiest branch of the Byakugan to evolve. On the contrary, the Tenseigan is a relatively special one among all the evolutionary branches of the Byakugan. Under normal circumstances, it is very difficult for the Hyuga people to evolve the Tenseigan, but Ningxi's situation is a bit special. His body has withstood Hyojin's six-path level Tenseigan, and the chakra in his body has been infected by the Tenseigan chakra, and he has passively accepted a slight genetic modification, so it is possible for him to awaken the Tenseigan, at least in terms of probability, it is possible. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1410. Ah, hey. In the practice field, Hana Kagura is working hard to practice soft fist. Her small body is flashing and moving in the field. Not only is she very agile, but her steps are not messy at all, showing a very high talent in soft fist. On the sidelines, listening carefully to the movements in the field, the corners of Hayashi's mouth raised slightly. There is no doubt that the talent shown by Hana Kagura made him very satisfied as the last patriarch of the Hyuga clan. Richa beside him also nodded repeatedly. Not bad, not bad. With the release of the caged bird by Hyojin, the old system of separation of the Hyuga clan was broken, and the relationship between Hayashi and Richa has become more harmonious. They no longer have to maintain the hierarchy between each other because of the difference between the Hyuga clan and the Hyuga clan. After a while, Hayashi asked expectantly, "Richa, do you think there is hope for Hana Kagura?" Richa thought for a while, then shook his head and said, "How can I say this kind of thing? But Hana Kagura's talent is not worse than Ningxi's. She is the most talented child in their generation. There should be hope. Let Kuroto take a look at her some other day." Hayashi deeply agreed. "Okay." Obviously, what the brothers are talking about is whether there is hope for Hana Kagura to awaken the Tenseigan. With the release of the caged bird, that binds the Hyuga clan is full of energy. Not only the teenagers, but even the middle-aged people like Richa are also immersed in cultivation, hoping to awaken the Tenseigan like Hyojin. Before, there was no path, and everyone couldn't see hope in front of them. But now with the two examples of Hyojin and Otsutsuki Samurai, everyone knows that there is the Tenseigan in front of the Byakugan, so they all want to try the possibility of awakening the Tenseigan. Therefore, the entire clan is full of the sound of cultivation, and all kinds of practice fields are almost full of people. For this, Hyojin was a little surprised. He guessed that everyone would covet the Tenseigan, but he didn't expect that everyone would be crazy to this point. Then, he felt a headache coming on. Because he knows very well that through normal practice, the probability of awakening Tenseigan is very small, there is almost no room for manipulation, and whether it is the method of Hyojin or Otsutsuki samurai to obtain Tenseigan, it is difficult to popularize. The risk of injecting genetic fluid was very high, and Hyojin had yet to find a solution. Once the gene replenishment failed and the gene collapsed, it would directly affect the chakra attribute in the body, which would then affect the weak spirit body that was attached to the body. In other words, if it is someone who died from genetic collapse, Hyojin is not sure that he can resurrect them perfectly, which is why he hasn't injected the genetic serum into her yet. Otsutsuki samurai's method of fusing high-purity byakugan could not be popularized, because the purity of Otsutsuki samurai's bloodline is far higher than that of ordinary Hyuga clansmen. With his pure bloodline, fusing with a pair of high-purity byakugan, the fused Tenseigan is not stable enough, not to mention other people. It can be said that in the entire Hyuga clan, the only one who has a little possibility of awakening Tenseigan is Ningxi. This is not to say that Ningxi's talent is very high, it is purely because he had transplanted Hyojin's Tenseigan, and the Byakugan chakra in his body was infected by the Tenseigan chakra, so there is a little possibility of awakening Tenseigan. As for the others, no matter how high the talent is and how hard the effort is, the probability of awakening Tenseigan is very small. Looking at these hopeful clansmen sweating in the practice field, Hyojin really doesn't want to let their hopes be shattered, so in addition to preparing for the wedding, he has also been thinking about how to improve the probability of awakening Tenseigan for the Hyuga clansmen. Not everyone can awaken Tenseigan, but at least like the Uchiha clan awakening Manjikyu Sharingan, as long as talent, hard work, and luck are enough, there is a possibility of awakening Tenseigan. After thinking about it, he can only rely on the giant Tenseigan. After all, it is impossible for him to constantly transplant his Tenseigan to others. He decided to design a ceremony similar to the Kekei fusion ceremony, so that every clansman who is qualified to awaken Tenseigan will accept the infusion of the giant Tenseigan chakra. Through the extremely high purity of the Tenseigan chakra, the Byakugan chakra in the clansman's body will be induced. With this way of changing the nature of chakra, the genes of the Hyuga clansman will be gently supplemented, thus increasing the probability of awakening Tenseigan. Kuroto estimated that as long as the giant Tenseigan can really reach the six-path level after digesting all the Byakugan, then the giant Tenseigan will theoretically have the ability to supplement the genes of the Hyuga clansman. In this way, if the luck is not too bad, perhaps every 10 years or so, a clansman of the Hyuga clan will be able to awaken the Tenseigan. This method can also allow Hyojin, who has absolute control over the giant Tenseigan, to control who can awaken the Tenseigan, and firmly control the Tenseigan in the clan. If this system can be implemented smoothly, then in less than a few decades, even without Hyojin, the Hyuga clan will become the strongest shinobi clan in the shinobi world. While the Hyuga clan was busy preparing for Hyojin's wedding and training, Hyojin's shadow guards were not idle and began their preliminary training. In the process of familiarizing themselves with the power of six-path level, Naruto and Otsutsuki samurai fought fiercely in Obsidian's godly power space, while Sasuke, who took the initiative to challenge Xianglin, was directly thrown into the Three Roads River of the Styx River by Xianglin, although it has only been a few days. After the competition and exploration between peers, they have become more familiar with themselves and each other. On this day, Hyojin gathered the 5 of them together and said, "The running-in process is over, from now on, I will continue the special training for you." Naruto didn't have stage fright at all, Sensei, we are already ready. Sasuke glanced at Xianglin on the side, and then asked, Naruto-sama, what is the special training? Xianglin, Xiuan, and Otsutsuki Samurai also looked at Hyojin. Hyojin didn't explain and directly activated Yomi Biraban with a smile, opened a space door, and then took the lead to step into the deep space door. The 5 members of the Shadow Guards didn't hesitate and immediately followed and stepped into the space door. But as soon as they passed through the space door, the 5 members of the Shadow Guards didn't have time to look around and fell to the ground without exception. Why is it here? In an instant, Naruto recognized that this was one of the prime spheres where they had fought with Otsutsuki Kagaya, the super-gravity space. What is this place? Otsutsuki Samurai was horrified, trying to get up while fighting against the terrifying gravity. Sasuke explained with a sullen face, this is one of Otsutsuki Kagaya's different spaces, the super-gravity space. Not far away, Hyojin smiled and said, welcome to the new training ground. It's almost a new week, and the leaderboard will be updated. So, I'm asking for recommendation votes, it's nothing. I hope everyone can support me. Also, thank you to the students who gave me gifts today, thank you everyone. Chapter 14:11. Practice Field. The teenagers lying on the ground looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise. Not to mention Xianglin, Xiuan, and Tonari, who were here for the first time, even Naruto and Sasuke, who had been here before, were full of inexplicable surprise. In this different space full of supergravity, it was very difficult to even stand up, so they couldn't imagine what it would be like to train here. Hyojin looked around, and finally his eyes fell on the far distance, on the Kijutsu Tensei that was sealed with Otsutsuki Kagaya suspended in the air. The height seems to be lower than before. Hyojin's eyes focused, and he whispered. Perhaps due to the influence of the supergravity environment, the height of the Kijutsu Tensei that was sealed with Otsutsuki Kagaya seemed to be a little lower than before. After careful observation, and after confirming that the Kijutsu Tensei was indeed slowly descending, Hyojin chuckled. Making a hasty move is really not stable enough. The essence of the Kijutsu Tensei was the high concentration of gravity. So as long as one's pupil power was enough, and the process of casting the technique was not overlooked, then even in a supergravity environment, the Kijutsu Tensei as a materialization of gravity should not be seriously affected. Now that the Kijutsu Tensei that was sealed with Hyojin Kagaya was slowly descending, it meant that Hyojin's previous seal was not perfect enough, and there were some flaws. But Hyojin was not surprised by this. These days, he was not only busy with the aftermath of the war, the promotion of various reforms, and the preparation of the wedding, but he also took the time to explore the Kekii net. And as he tested and explored his own abilities, he faintly found that even the most common ninjutsu, Kekii net, could be used to great effect. Therefore, if Kuroto is asked to use Kyokushin Tensei again now, he is confident that he can increase its power by 50%, and this is not the limit. If he is given enough time, he feels that there is still room for further improvement of Kyokushin Tensei. As for Otsutsuki Kagaya's seal, Hyojin was not worried. Anyway, he had already planned to wait for a period of time to completely master the power of the bloodline net before lifting the seal and talking to Otsutsuki Kagaya again to get some information about the Otsutsuki clan. Withdrawing his gaze, Hyojin looked at the youths who were still lying on the ground and said with a smile, "Yes, this is the new training ground that I have specially prepared for all of you." Facing Hyojin's gaze, the 5 members of the Shadow Squad didn't want to disappoint Hyojin, so they mustered all their strength and struggled to get up from the ground. Immortal Mode. Naruto instantly activated the Immortal Mode, and the pupils in his eye sockets became vertical like those of a snake. His entire aura changed, and he gritted his teeth, arched his body, and propped himself up with one knee on the ground. Xianglin, who had the strongest physique among the five, was anxious when he saw this. He immediately launched a small area of Shinra Tensei, and with the repulsive force of Shinra Tensei, he also struggled to get up from the ground. Naruto and Xianglin were both Uzumaki clan members, and their physiques were extraordinary. Moreover, one had mastered the immortal technique, and the other had the Rinnegan. So, in this unique competition, they quickly got ahead of the other three. Otsutsuki Samurai no longer hesitated when he saw this. He immediately activated the Tenseigan and entered the Tenseigan chakra. With the tyrannical Tenseigan chakra as support, he also arched his body. Looking at Naruto, Xianglin, and Tonari next to him, all barely arched their bodies, and some even stood on one foot. Sasuke was shocked and anxious. Immediately, he also imitated Xianglin and launched Shinra Tensei, trying to use the repulsive force of Shinra Tensei to resist the supergravity of the environment. However, although Sasuke's physique was also considered good, compared with Xianglin's abnormal physique, which was fused with Uzumaki Vortex and Thousand Hands bloodline, he was obviously inferior. Therefore, even with the help of the repulsive force of Shinra Tensei, the bones and joints of his body couldn't adapt to the supergravity environment in a very short time, and couldn't support his body at all. Damn it! Seeing that Naruto, Xianglin, and Tonari were about to get up, Sasuke, who was barely able to support his body, became even more anxious. In the Shadow Guard, whether it is his old partner Naruto, or Otsutsuki Samurai who has the Tenseigan, or Xianglin and Zyuan who are also members of Amatsukami, all of them are regarded as his competitors. As proud as he is, he has long regarded himself as the strongest person in Hyojin's Shadow Guard, so he will never allow himself to lose to others in any competition, especially to Xianglin who also has the Rinnegan but is also a girl. Unfair, you guys are cheating. Among the five people, only Zyuan was lying on the ground motionlessly, complaining incessantly. Physique has never been an advantage for the Miko of the Land of Demons. It can even be said that the Miko of the Land of Demons are somewhat weak, so although Zyuan used her full strength, she couldn't resist the supergravity environment at all, she couldn't even support her body. After a while, Naruto, who was the first to activate Sage Mode, was the first to stand up. Although his body was a little staggered, his palms were really off the ground. Immediately afterward, Xianglin and Tonari stood up at the same time. At this time, only Sasuke and Zyuan haven't stood up yet. Hyojin looked at the two of them with interest, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Naruto shouted to Sasuke, who was only half kneeling on one foot, "Come on, Sasuke." Sasuke, who was a little embarrassed, glanced at Zyuan, who was still lying on the ground, and sighed unwillingly. "Sigh, I actually only won against Zyuan." Xianglin smiled and said, "Zyuan, I won this time." After being provoked by Xianglin, Zyuan pouted and immediately took out the witch's crown from her small bag and put it on her head. Instantly, she entered the witch mode, that can control natural energy, and climbed up from the ground. Whoosh, a cool breeze blew gently, and 4 of the 5 shadow guards stood up, leaving only Sasuke half lying on the ground with a dull face. Naruto was the first to react. "Sasuke, come on, you can do it." Xianglin glanced at Sasuke, who was lying on the ground. "Hey, can you hurry up?" Zyuan dusted off her clothes and said to Sasuke, "Why are you staring at me? Hurry up, I'm just waiting for you." "You guys." Sasuke's blood was boiling, and he was embarrassed and angry at the same time. "I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Tomorrow is the day of the college entrance examination. I wish all the students who are participating in the college entrance examination a smooth journey. I hope that all of you will be able to get into the university you want." Chapter 14:12 Susanoo. With a loud shout, the half-squatting Sasuke launched the pupil technique Susanoo, and a purple shadow was projected from his body and quickly expanded, turning into a god in armor. Then, the purple Susanoo hit the ground with both palms and propped up violently. Boom! A huge roar sounded, and under the effect of Susanoo, Sasuke stood up with a gloomy face. Such a loud noise naturally caused the others to be surprised. Xianglin curled his lips. Really? Xiun also stroked her chest. Really, the sudden roar scared me. Listening to Xianglin and Xiuan's complaints, Sasuke, who was panting, suddenly blushed. However, no one really laughed at Sasuke. After all, the supergravity environment of Otsutsuki Kagaya's prime sphere space was indeed extraordinary, and no one was much stronger than anyone else. Hyojin just glanced at Sasuke, and did not look down on Sasuke because of this. Whether one can quickly adapt to the supergravity environment is related to strength, physique, control of the body, and so on, and the most important one is physique. In this aspect, compared to the others, Sasuke, who had neither mastered any immortal arts nor could activate his special state, was at a clear disadvantage. Thus, it was normal for him to adapt slower than the others, and there was nothing strange about it. Even Otsutsuki Kagaya, who had not fully recovered from his resurrection, fell to the ground when he first entered. Otsutsuki Kagaya is a real Kekii net, which is at least 2 or 3 realms higher than the Shadow Guards who are incomplete six-path or close to the six-path level. Since Otsutsuki Kagaya is like this, there is nothing to criticize about Sasuke's performance. After a while, when the Shadow Guards gradually began to adapt to the supergravity environment, Hyojin said, "This is a different space, affected by a special gravitational tide. The gravity is abnormal, and at its highest, the gravity can reach more than 10 times that of the shinobi world." Everyone's expression changed. Under more than 10 times the normal gravity, it wasn't as simple as having more than 10 times the normal weight. The human body was a very complicated system. The respiratory system, digestive system, and blood circulation system were all affected by gravity. Gravity more than 10 times was a heavy burden on the tough bones and muscles of the human body, not to mention the extremely fragile organs such as the heart and lungs. Ordinary civilians would die within a minute of entering a supergravity environment due to breathing difficulties and heart failure. Even a ninja with chakra would need to be at least a jonin to survive in the supergravity environment. Only ninjas like Naruto, Sasuke, Xiuan, Kamio, and Tonari, who are close to the six-path level, are qualified to train here. Hyojin continued, "This is a forbidden zone for life. Ordinary creatures can't survive here. Correspondingly, if you can survive here and get used to this harsh environment, then your physical fitness will be greatly improved." Otsutsuki Samurai immediately understood Hyojin's intention. "I understand, the supergravity environment can not only exercise our physique, but it can also exercise the organs that are normally difficult to exercise." "Yes." After a short pause, Kuroto continued with a smile. "In this special extreme environment, the fragile organs in your body are equivalent to being hung with weights, directly participating in the exercise. No wonder it's so hard to breathe here," Naruto exclaimed in surprise. "In order to maintain the normal operation of the various organs in the body, your chakra consumption here will be 2 to 3.5 times that of the shinobi world, so you can also exercise your chakra control here. The more precise the control of chakra is, the less chakra will be wasted, and the longer the training time will be." Tsuruto smiled and said, "In order to maintain the normal operation of the various organs in the body, your chakra consumption here will be 2 to 3.5 times that of the shinobi world." Sasuke was secretly delighted. "Chakra control is my specialty." The others also looked thoughtful. Because of their young age, their chakra amount is still in the growth period, so they usually train more in various ninjutsu and taijutsu, and they don't put too much effort in the fine control of chakra. After glancing at his companions, Sasuke, who can't wait to get back at them, asked Hyojin, "Sama, what is the specific training program?" Hyojin slowly raised his right hand and waved to everyone, indicating that they can start. Everyone was stunned and looked at each other. Hyojin smiled and said, "There is a Kekii net to be your sparring partner, what are you waiting for?" Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up, and they were eager to give it a try. As Hyojin said, in the entire shinobi world, only Hyojin and Otsutsuki Kagaya, the ancestor of chakra, can perform Kekii net, that is above the 6th-path level. Therefore, being able to fight with a Kekii net is a rare experience for anyone. At this time, Hyojin gradually put away his smile, and said in a deep voice, "Don't be happy too early, I will not be lenient, so you better go all out." Naruto clenched his fist and said, "Sensei, be careful." Sasuke also put his hands on his waist and said, "Sama, if the 5 of us join forces, even you will find it very difficult to deal with us." At this time, Otsutsuki Samurai's fighting spirit was also ignited. In the last confrontation, he was inexplicably defeated. He was almost unable to fight back and was crushed, but this time, he has 4 strong companions around him, so he feels that this time there is hope to defeat Hyojin. Xianglin and Ziyuan's emotions are very normal, the 2 of them used to practice with Hyojin in the air fortress, so they are not as excited as Naruto, Sasuke, and Tonari.